Here to win. Oh, we
Hold
are
on,
live?
That's me.
Are we live?
It looks like we are live.
Oh my god.
Maybe if I back.
Yeah.
What an intro.
Is there still wind?
Not
No.
anymore, no.
No, we're good.
Sweet.
So we're live with there's still wind. What is that wind?
Oh, that's me. That's me.
What is this
It
wind?
just started as soon as we
The
went
wi-
live,
the
I
wind-
swear.
The wind is my fault. It's my fan. It was my fan.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
There we go.
No.
That
Yeah,
is
so now you're going to be as warm as I am. So anyway, let's see. We got a few things to go over here. We have I am I guess Dr. Speed, and we have Dr. Destiny and Dr. Fish and Dr. Phileas. and we're waiting for Dr. Alchemy.
If you
Dr.
want,
Phil.
if you
you want-
here.
stay accurate with my channel. I haven't released any videos yet. I'm just waiting for because I can't do professional level video editing from the laptop that I bought. So I bought a used MacBook from my buddy. I'm just waiting. He's bought a new battery for it. He's got to put the new battery in it and then send it to me. And once I get that, I will be releasing videos. And I have a series. We'll have a series called Dr. Eigenstate Explains. And eigenstate is a term from linear algebra. It's used frequently in quantum mechanics. I think in other areas of science as well. And
I think you can also go by Dr. Phil.
I could, but I don't really want to do that. So I'll be releasing videos that just are explaining more complex and often misconceived topics in science. And so if you want to keep with that, you can call me Dr. Eigenstate, but you don't have to. I'm not
Dr.
really a doctor.
Eigenstate.
That reminds me, given Smoky's conversation that was very interesting on Dr. Jan's channel. By the way, everybody should check that out. That was quite entertaining. Maybe Walker should direct content towards Smoky regarding basic things in biology like Mendelian cross.
Yeah, Smoky very clearly. Well, okay, so the thing is, Smoky doesn't know anything about biology. Like,
Really?
that's a given. But he's also not really spreading that much misinformation about biology either. You know what I mean? Like, he's saying stuff, but most of what he says is directly coming from SFT or Otangelo or Maddox.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like since he's not necessarily like a source of misinformation, it's not worth going after. Does that make sense?
I feel
Yeah.
like Smokey just does more of the preaching and proselytizing, if you want to call it that. While he
Interesting
leaves
way of
more of, like,
evangelism, but yeah.
Yeah, like I'm just using loose terms here, the ones that come to mind. I'm not going to sit and think about some complex term that better describes it when it's not necessary.
Good point.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So Smokey does that. I think that he tends to leave the science more to people like Standing and Otangelo. Brother Standing, Brother Otangelo, and Brother Maddox.
Brother Mel.
The Brotherhood.
And we've all seen the type of quality we can expect from their channels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, Crispr is here.
Ooh.
Looks like.
Hey, Crispr.
Hey, what's going on?
You showed up.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I was
Welcome.
Just, talking to Ozzy on Discord and lost track of time.
Oh, you're good. You're good. All of us were
Yep.
late except for Immutable and Speed. This is
Yep.
the first time Immutable has ever beat me to anything.
Exactly.
I know. Gee whiz. Kind of rare.
Anyway. Okay, so I guess before you came, well, I guess you were in the room with Standing for Truth, right, Crispr, first?
Yeah. Well,
And-
so this is actually sort of a running issue that I've had with some of the new crop, which is that they're all in this WWE pro wrestler mindset of the call
Yep.
out, right?
I laugh at
And-
it so much.
And
Go for
and
it.
I've said on so many occasions before, look, if you want me to go into a room, tell me what you want to talk with me about, and then ask me to come in. Right? That's all I ask. And I was in the room. I had to say that like 8 or 9 times in that chat. And then I was in the room within about a minute of Smokey doing that, which I believe was discussed a bit after I came in, because what I was told I would be doing is talking to Standing about the mitochondrial rates. And of course, what happened as soon as I got in there was, SFT, Oh, I got to go have my pizza.
It's always movie night or pizza.
By the
Oh,
way,
yeah.
CrispR, if I'm not mistaken, how long has it been since you've interacted directly with them? I mean, it's been about what, like a year and a half, 2 years?
It's been a little bit. I mean, so the thing is that I'm perfectly happy to have a discussion with anybody. I do not join rooms just because, right? I'm not going to do it because I'm getting called out. I'm not going to do it because there's a free spot. I'm going to do it because I've been asked to talk about a topic, which
Makes
is
sense.
easy for somebody to do. I don't know why they can't. But the people who say, "Oh, he's unwilling to go into chats," like, what are you talking about? Just invite me in.
Yeah, but as long as like the specificities are up front, right? Not just invite me in and talk about evolution.
And the thing, well, yes, that is definitely the case because I'll stay after that topic, and you can keep talking to me about other things, as demonstrated here. But the thing I hate is when I go into a room to talk about something, and then I never talk about that thing, and instead I'm asked to talk about a bunch of stuff that I'm not prepared to talk about.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's just that's a waste of my time.
Sometimes I think they
I'm not
do it on
interested.
purpose.
Well, isn't that kind of what happened anyway with the 1+? They got the 1+1 backwards. Somehow they thought that was abiogenesis, and
Well, no, that is the so that's what I was saying about I'll stay and I'll talk about other stuff after the fact, right? That's
Yeah.
fine. That doesn't bother me.
okay,
But that's after I've had the first conversation, right? That's the second conversation is anything goes. I'm in the room, fine. Talk to me about whatever. But first, let's have this conversation about the topic I was invited to talk about.
Uh-huh.
yep.
Mhm.
We were looking at the second conversation tonight, the one with John Maddox. So, unless you want to go back to the first one,
Oh no, I think it was a good conversation with Standing. I mean,
yeah,
I think that it was the usual. I don't know how he's going to defend the notion that all of these numbers agree with one another.
mm-hmm.
I don't know how he was saying it in the first place, but that's beside the point. And I think that you said you didn't want to talk about. We were going to talk about just this video, so we're not going to talk about Raw Matt's complete lack of mathematical ability.
we
Did
could,
you
like,
read his paper? Sorry, I didn't.
No, I'm not talking. The most recent video he did with Standing, he first was unable to recognize that 327 is greater than 306.
Really? That's
That doesn't surprise me at all.
woo, that's a new
And-
low.
I
and
don't really know
then-
that much about Raw Matt, to be honest with you guys.
Mhm.
Oh
and
man,
there ain't
And then
much to know.
he also, well, that is basically a description of his mind.
Wow.
And then he also said that 33 times 20 is 6,600.
Yeah,
Yeah. So in his most recent
Twitch,
paper,
Twitch Standing was sitting there saying, "Yeah, good job, brother."
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, in his like most recent, like he hit the fraudulent paper thing that he published, quote unquote, he fails like basic algebra, and he doesn't know what an R value is because they were talking about the correlation between like ages, and so he uses that as a mutation rate, and then from there he just keeps going. He just keeps chugging along. It's like, oh my god, dude, you don't. Oh god.
should it surprise any of us that none of them have any level of like basic statistics at all?
No.
Yeah, statistics.
They
is
don't
one of
understand
the
p
things-
values at all either.
It's one thing I've
Oh,
noticed is they're just bad at math in general. All of I shouldn't say they're bad at math, but they certainly do not understand even advanced algebra. For at least from my observations, let alone even getting into like trigonometry and calculus and even
Okay.
ones beyond that.
I'm glad you
I'm
highlighted
not
that. I was
trying
going to read
to
it.
say, and for people that are like kind of wondering about that, I'm not trying to say like people should just automatically know statistics. I mean, for God's sake, it's its own field,
Yeah.
and there's statisticians that deal with that. But the like basic statistics isn't hard to get a hold of.
No, yeah, it's the basics that they don't even know. That's so shocking.
Well, yeah, I
mean-
mean that's the whole thing with creationism in general is where they jump from like the intro stuff and go straight into like the complexities that they don't understand.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that
that's
applies
why
across
they
the board with
misinterpret so
math,
much of it.
with geology, with all of the other stuff that they argue.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, Crispr, remind me if I'm wrong. Isn't statistic kind of like a core requirement for like all math or not math, like all science majors?
Yes. Well, at least it is for me.
Pretty much.
I hope so.
There's
Although-
a lot of it in physics.
Although I do know quite a few ecology people who need a table of values to convert between radius and diameter, or not between. Not I'm sorry, circumference. It's not that bad. To convert between circumference and diameter.
Okay. I can't tell that too. Holy crap!
Still really bad. Anyway, sorry, that's not relevant.
Oh no,
No,
it's good. I thought that was funny.
No, you don't have. The thing is, you don't have to be good at math to do good science. You don't have to be good at statistics to do good science. But you do need to be able to recognize your own limitations, because at the end of the day, you have to say, all right, I have done the science that I can do as well as I can do it, and now I need to go talk to my friend who can do statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's valid. Science is always and inherently a collaborative process, right? So it's fine if you can't do statistics. You just have to know you can't do statistics.
Yeah.
Science is a way, effectively, science is a way of data acquisition. Statistics tells you what your data actually means, or what can be, what value your data has.
What?
If he means Nephilim free, I can tell you from my experiences with him on Pell Talk. Nephilim free is not like an offensive interlocutor. He doesn't really attack you. He might throw subtle attacks on your worldview, but I got to give him credit. The guy, I mean, his points are really, really bad. His arguments are really, really bad, but he makes them. I mean,
His argument
that don't, but I can tell you he's not just not very adept at math. He's not very adept at science anyway. Nephilim free, when it comes to science and mathematics, is quite frankly, and this is not meant to be provocative or disrespectful. It's just an observation as somebody who isn't a professional but still understands these things, that he doesn't have a very adept understanding of them at all. He's not very well educated in science and mathematics.
Look,
And I have had many exchanges with Nephilim free. So this isn't being based off of a few or several or even a dozen. This is being based off of probably several dozen exchanges, long exchanges, hours-long exchanges that I've had with him.
Okay, this is an exaggeration, but not too much of an exaggeration. To my memory, I've spoken with him twice or three times, and every time after, I've wanted to strangle somebody.
Neff.
see, that's the difference.
Because he's
That's the
very
difference between you and me.
reiterative, is what I call it.
Because the times that I've talked to Neff, the conversation has ended with him wanting to strangle me. Because
Yeah.
I like to point out that he barely has more teeth than non-cirrhotic liver cells. And
That's pretty good.
Oh boy.
The thing with Nephilim that makes him so frustrating is he's very, I call it reiterative. Just repeats the same things. Now, if you are very educated in a subject and you know how to respond to what he's saying in a way that thoroughly demonstrates that it's just not correct, then that's where you start frustrating him, because he just, at that point, he can't keep reiterating the same thing, and then he gets frustrated. But yeah,
I don't think I've ever watched a
Frustrating
video that had
interlocutor
Nephilim free
because
in it
he's
from
so-
like start to finish. Oh, sorry.
the other thing is that Neff's got short-term memory problems, and
Yeah.
he forgets that he's already said the thing he's currently saying, and it's basically a record on the loop. He just can't.
Yeah, I think he's OCD.
Well, I think part of it, and those of us that have been around long enough, I don't know when CRISPR joined the community exactly, but I believe part of that might have been brought upon like by excessive use of alcohol.
think
He insists he doesn't drink. I don't know.
Because he's been here since I think like 2008, and
he's been on for a while. I know that.
My YouTube, my stat says that I joined September 27th, 2006.
Okay. But I mean, like, part of the community.
Off and on.
Okay, but I mean, like, roughly participating in it since 2014, 2015?
No, well, no, I've been fairly active since late 2016, but I've been off and on since 2006 when I joined, because I joined for that reason.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Hence
Nice.
the relevant name.
Oh no, the name's new. The name was because I needed something to have a public face, because I needed a public facing personality, not personality, but profile that I could use. So, so I picked that for that reason.
Actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense considering CRISPR wasn't even like being widely used till 2012. I don't know why I thought that.
Yep. So, Dr. Dan is here, and I have a little bit of a clip when, like, I think you first switched over to Maddox, but I just wanted to play this a little bit. It has nothing to do with genetics, but it has to do with who we're dealing with, I think. So, go ahead and roll it.
Yep.
This is the toxic masculinity talk. I don't know if you heard that.
Dan was mad at me. Dan says I need to come on his channel and have a debate about toxic masculinity.
That's not true.
Oh boy, I'm excited for that one.
Oh man, that's a guaranteed dumpster fire right there.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah. No, we'd need a moderator. I think for certain. Actually,
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
So,
I think he would have
okay,
to.
so
Define that.
So for the people who are unaware, in universities across America, there are literally classes on white male toxic masculinity, and I know, like at Vanderbilt University, for example, here in Nashville, it's like a male freshman, like borderline mandatory course.
That's not true. I have
It's
friends
like,
that
in what universe do you think it is a remotely rational undertaking
to
tell 18-year-old boys that
that's
are
literally
toxic?
just false. That's literally false.
soy?
That's a lie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only two logical outcomes.
Okay,
Either
listen to
one-
his outcomes.
Either one.
Almond milk.
Well, you have to think about this. Okay, if you got an immature kid and you tell him that regardless of what you actually think, who you are, and what you want to be, by default, this is what you are just because you are a male. There's only two outcomes. Either one, they actively do everything in their power to turn into a sissy boy, or they.
Oh yeah, that's.
Is that why people called you Alpha Wolf at your workplace, John?
It's what around calling people sissy boys, so that's why he got the name Alpha Wolf.
Is
And
that
then the stream the other night where he was, I mean, when he's talking to an atheist, he constantly uses he always goes to sex for some reason, and it's always about his dick and his cojones, and I just and the problem with these guys is that when it comes to, they don't really understand this toxic masculinity, because in the same way that a fish does not understand what a lake is, because they are so immersed in it that they can't possibly see it for what it is, but they're just constantly doing this dick measuring thing.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me crazy about Maddox and Smoky.
It's kind of curious because, I mean, Tommy Hall would kind of do the same thing, but
well, I mean, he measured dicks for different reasons.
Well, yeah, he also measured the diameter of his asshole for different reasons too. But
I liked measuring dicks and assholes.
Well, if only you knew. God. But anyway, what was I trying to say? Yeah, it tends to be the case. Like when I've met people who use like the word beta, like or alpha towards me, almost 100% of the time, the people that are using those words as like a derogative term don't seem to understand like how those words are actually used or what they actually like signify to the person they're trying to ascribe them to.
Look, honestly, I felt like I was going to bite all the way through my tongue during the bit you just played. I wanted to say something, but also I knew that I did not want to have that conversation with those guys.
Well, can I say something really quick before we dive into this a little more? And I mentioned this earlier in a private chat that I was having with some people in here. If I were to ask Maddox, is who I was mentioning, but not just Maddox, but I can't say everybody in there, but I would bet most, if not all of them, if they've ever been hunting, if they know how to hunt or fish, what kind of fish they like to fish for, where they like to fish at, what do they know about auto mechanics, what kind of physical labor have they done in their lives, like all of the things that are traditionally considered things that define manhood. How much of that have you actually done, and how much of that do you actually know? I was born and raised in rural Iowa, so being hands-on and having skills and being able to work with your hands, being able to live off the land, as the phrase often goes, I know about that stuff. I know about the stuff that traditionally classifies you as a man. How much of this stuff do they actually know? Or do they think that it's all about being a wannabe pseudo-masculine alpha male incel red pillar neoconservative, and that's what makes you a man? Because it's not.
Yeah.
Well,
so my whole problems with that is, first of all, like, it was wrong in the premise. Dan never challenged Smoky to a bait. Smoky was just exaggerating because it's a dick measuring contest for him. Hint, hint. And then also, like, the whole thing about Maddox going, well, at Vanderbilt, there's literally a class for white males to take about, like, toxic masculinity or whatever. There's not. My cousin went to Vanderbilt, and one of my best friends goes to Vanderbilt. That's simply false. Like, there's not classes that you're required to take for indoctrination. That's just a myth. That's perpetrated by Fox News, because my dad was worried about that, too, because I go to a liberal-ish school.
You know, Walker, I love you, man, but if this is the first time you're realizing that Maddox is a little bit out of touch with reality...
No, that's not. It's just kind of annoying, because he's mischaracterizing the American education system.
I think, given like the information that's available about Maddox, which I will not disclose here, it seems quite obvious to me that Maddox defines manlyhood as the ability to be assertive and a complete asshole in the workforce, or something to that equivalent.
He's alpha wolf.
Given the way he's talked about his experience as a CEO, I believe, in his company.
Okay, see, now that just opens up a whole new can of worms, because being even an entrepreneur or somebody who's been involved in starting a business does not automatically translate to being a CEO. And even that can still be used in a very loose sense of where if there was a formal structure and you were listed as a CEO, which is still vastly different from being the chief executive officer of, say, a $6.5 billion a year company with, say, 70,000 employees. Yeah. So, and it's not that it's necessarily that it's inaccurate to call yourself CEO at some points. It's just the point that you're trying to get at when you call yourself that, you don't really meet that contextual definition of the word.
I don't think he's ever called himself a CEO, just alpha wolf.
To make it more clear, I do recall like that type of term being used. I believe he said like he was like the CEO or like vice CEO of his own company. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, the reason I played that clip before the conversation that Crispr and he had is that during the entire conversation, that same kind of mindset goes on with these guys.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And it has to do with somehow I think they gravitate to this creationism in part because they want to stand on a little island above everybody else. And if you listen to the way they talk about Christianity and this pain in hell, how all the atheists are going to hell and they're damned, and all of this stuff, I think it all fits into their mindset. And then when I listened to Crispr trying to have a conversation with them about the science, this thing kept coming up. This mindset. I don't know. It all knits together. and I think it's
There-
I think it's a sickness.
There are definitely consistencies in the psychology of all of them, honestly. And I gotta say, it's somewhat fascinating. And it's not just them, but a lot of different groups, or small groups of people that share the same ideology. They kind of operate the same way the Brotherhood does. And the psychology behind it is interesting. I mean, I could sit for hours and try to explain different ideas and theories and hypotheses, would be a better term to use for what I think it is, but I'm not going to do that for time's sake. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I think the important, like one of the important aspects to take away from that is that even in groups that believe themselves to be fighting a good cause, one of the things that seems to drive this behavior more than anything else is the fact that there's this kind of group mentality and this, like, as being part of a common, as having a common goal, like in your group. In some groups, there's this kind of unspoken rule about don't speak ill about your fellow man. Don't, publicly correct him, because hey, he's fighting the good fight. He's trying to, bring people to the truth, or hey, he's trying to bring people into the fold. And to me, I mean, and I have seen Smoky do it at least once when he was talking to Nicholas. But you don't see it really often, like where Lodge will call out Standing for making a scientific error, or vice versa, or even anybody in that community really
they don't correct each other.
engaging in corrective criticism.
What amazed me is, you remember Jeremy? Did you ever watch any of his stuff?
Yes. Oh,
I mean, he was talking batshit crazy stuff and Standing, and everybody was like, "This, oh yeah, brother, oh yeah, brother," and it was like, and a couple times Standing tried to correct him, or somebody did, but it was very gentle. I mean, it was like when he went off the rails. It just kind of amazes me that it doesn't matter what the hell they say, to go along with it.
The thing is, with Jeremy, and I might be like misremembering part of him, like as a persona, is that every sentence he spoke seemed to like invoke something to the equivalent of, "I can't wait to kill those atheists if I get the chance."
Oh yeah, he was actually
Who's
telling
this?
me he wanted to kill me at one point.
Jeremy.
Yeah,
I do not remember Jeremy.
Oh, you don't wanna. He hasn't been on Standing's channel, so Standing, what happened to Jeremy?
He seems like a very disturbed individual, quite frankly.
Who is this? Which one are you talking about?
Person named Jeremy, apparently.
Yeah.
Who?
Anyway,
He used to be around a year and a half or so.
I still don't know who we're talking about.
good.
Jeremy.
Don't worry.
Thank God.
Jeremy.
What you don't know can't hurt you.
Right. We all want to talk about the debate, or
Yeah.
not the debate, like the discussion.
We could run something here. I
On
think
with
I
it,
had
Merry
something.
Man.
What?
I said, on with it, merry men.
Okay, remember the safe word. When somebody wants
Foreskin.
to pause, you say foreskin very loudly.
Oh yeah,
And-
I forgot that Maddox also likes that word now too.
Okay.
That's a good.
Anybody will ever disprove known human history. We have a human history that goes back to the flood and before the flood, and that's basically the truth.
Remember the
Junk of Jargon's voices. It's
what was
annoying.
it,
I'm
4-hour
sorry.
conversation that we had? Actually, you know what? I want to say, was that actually, that may have been the only time I did something that was organized as a debate. Was that officially organized as a debate?
It was a discussion that I had with you. I don't know if it was.
I couldn't remember. I remember that I made some
I
slides.
think maybe we can run ahead
Right,
here.
and that's a decent group, except for Dan. But
Also,
I
just
one
quick
thing.
I don't know Dan well enough, so I can't.
Well, I can tell you right now. Dan is super flaky. Dan really do not have a spine. Okay, Dan come out here and like the first maybe 3 times or whatever, and he's been a missing in action. He will not come into these rooms.
I'm not sure where things start here. Do things start shortly here, CrispR, or should I run ahead to the Matrix? Well, I think we got about 3 minutes.
There was a bit of a back and forth with C for a bit.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, I should point out, so I had about a 4-hour conversation with JJ once, and I've had about a 4-hour conversation with C Brown once. All of which without anybody going completely off the rails. And so keep
Well-
that in mind for the conversation with John, because
So-
it's just
Wait. How did you have a 4-hour conversation like with CJ particularly fucking going off the rails? I mean,
well,
you do so much as like state a scientific fact, and he's already like wanting to like kill, like jump all over it.
C. Brown, you mean?
Yeah.
oh, see,
I don't
see, Brown,
know
it
him.
was fun. I think part of it was that it was somewhat late at night, and well, this was late at night too. But if you actually watch that sometime, it's hilarious because you can hear his girlfriend in the background going, "Oh, it's late. Go to bed."
Before you click that play
Standing for
button,
Truth's
I just-
life every night.
Before you click the play button, I just wanted to throw in there the problem with John, unlike pretty much everybody else, is that he does. I honestly don't think he cares about having a discussion with people. I think he just
No,
cares about
not at all.
condescending them, telling them how wrong and stupid they are, attacking their character, and ultimately attacking their worldview. Because in
So-
debate, somebody will say something and he'll say, and see, this is what these dumb atheists do, is they try to make these stupid, like he just attacks the person in the worldview instead of addressing any substance of what they just said.
Okay, so I agree with you, and if you read the about section of his channel, and especially if you watch like the earlier content he did like with philosophy, it becomes very obvious that like he's trying to use like office room or office room like logic in a scientific debate fundamentally.
Yeah.
I might be incorrect about that, but it's kind of what it seems like he's wanting to do.
Yeah.
Like he wants an elevator pitch. Like he's trying to give people an elevator sales pitch on why creationism is true, and particularly why Darwinism is false, and thus they should accept creationism somehow.
Okay, roll.
Roll it.
See what happens.
Okay, and his discussions are so limited. Okay, just recently he had a debate with Standing for Truth, and he basically said that I am not going to use the fossil record. I'm only going to use DNA information to prove that the Neanderthals were a sister species versus the same species.
Yeah.
I mean, versus being human. Okay, and I'm not going to use the fossil records because the fossil
modern
records it don't help him. Okay, so basically he wanted to use DNA markers to prove his point, but not knowing when these markers were created, during what span. So he tried to limit the information and to make a point. And then he hasn't been nowhere around since then. Dan is a weak man. Okay.
So
Jesus.
the Bayesian inference is actually pretty good at giving you reasonable estimates as far as what the credible intervals are in terms of the derivation of those markers. So I mean, I don't really want to get into the math of
but you can really guess the times when those markers, when you're looking at long scale evolution, you can really guess the time when those markers were created. You can really do that scientifically, or are you totally guessing?
No, but you can look at the phylogenetics.
Well, you
Like
can
that.
you can make an estimation that is reasonably accurate, given
Based
the
on
data.
what data are you looking at? Because you don't have data you can actually look at. You got speculation based on fossil records.
You have a stack of sequences, right? This is it is all agnostic to anything else. I mean, there are methods that do incorporate fossil calibration, for instance, right? So you can actually do that, but you don't have to do that. So you can leave out the fossil calibrations and you can just run it with just the sequences, and it will give you an interval based on that. And
with no assumptions.
Which
matrix
do you usually use when you're doing that kind of stuff?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said, which matrix do you usually use when you're doing those kinds of sequences?
Substitution matrix.
Yeah, when you're doing a gene sequence, like which
So
Which matrix are you?
So I think right here he was trying to interject something about assumptions, right? Is that what he was up to?
well, this is a common creationist tactic. Everybody should be on the should be looking for, which is that he's desperately looking for any avenue whatsoever to direct the conversation to something he wants to talk about, because he thinks he's got a knockout line of conversation, right?
Yep.
And so he heard a way that he thought he could get onto this substitution matrix conversation.
Yeah.
And he took a shot.
And he probably has no idea at all what that means. I'm guessing.
Well, he has
I know him.
some idea.
He heard the word.
It's not a very good idea, but
Anyway,
okay, sick burn coming. I think this is
usually
Maddox,
Most of the-
I'm
most of the
gonna
program-
bow out here for a few minutes. I'll be back in a little bit if you guys are still going.
Okay, man. Appreciate you.
So different programs will
Pizza.
use different we use a different matrix. Generally speaking, when you talk about something like Blossom or something, you're really talking about doing multiple alignments. You're really talking about alignments and not so much the phylogeny, right? We could get into that a bit if you really wanted.
Well, the reason I'm asking that question is these comparisons that are made ultimately rely on a matrix, correct?
So when you're doing your initial sequence alignments, you use a substitution matrix to inform the alignment.
Okay, and then from there you're basing everything on the assumption that's derived from the similarity, correct?
My God.
I don't. There's something about the way you're saying that I'm not sure if you're using the words wrong or if you're just talking about something you don't mean to.
Well, I have.
Did somebody say
Let's just
pause?
say
Do
I
we need a foreskin right here?
Watch.
You got him stuttering. Did you hear that?
You pretty much
pretty good.
pointed out that he's wording a question in a way that no professional would really be able to recognize
Right.
what it is that they're asking, thinking that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what you just did. And it was so succinct and respectful and almost subtle. Like, it would be hard to pick up that that's what you were doing. When maybe you weren't doing it intentionally, but it's classic. That's just classic.
Yep. It was pretty cool. Anyway. Okay. We're done with that.
Mm-hmm.
Watched a variety of the lectures directly on this in quite deep, and it's pretty high level detail, and which is why I'm just wanting to clarify like what you specifically are doing when you're looking at this sort of information. Like, what is the process what you're doing, and what assumptions are you operating?
So again, you have to understand that there's a separate process between aligning two sequences, right, and then analyzing them in a phylogeny.
All right, I get that.
Does that make sense?
No, I understand that. What I'm asking you is, after you have done, when you're doing, okay, why don't you, for the audience, explain to everybody what is being processed in the context of alignment?
For the audience, i.e., I don't understand
when you produce these sequences, right, if there is a deletion or an insertion, they're going to be different lengths. So the easiest example of an alignment would be, let's say you have two humans would be too easy, but let's say you have two closely related species, right? Two species of bluefin tuna, let's say. I don't know, there's like 7 or 8 species of bluefin tuna, but they're pretty close to each other. And so you take two sequences from them and you align them. They're probably going to be the same length. They're probably going to be almost identical all the way across, right? So you don't need to do much to align them. They align pretty clear. You could do it by hand, right? You wouldn't even need a matrix. You could just look at it and tell, here is how this aligns. If there's an insertion or a deletion, you can tell visually just looking at it, because if I put a space here, then all of these colored bands line up. So once you have that, then you do the phylogeny, right? And so that is a separate issue from. So what you're talking about comes before the actual phylogenetic comparisons, because
So
first you have
make
to
a point.
Is
Okay, but you can determine.
Wait, foreskin.
Where I'm
Okay.
going with all this is you just used.
Whoops.
So
Okay.
what I was trying to do there, I was trying to make the point that he's going on about this algorithmic process, right? That you use with the substitution matrix, because he thinks that the underlying assumptions of them is somehow a problem. And what I was trying to do is make the point that you don't need a matrix or an algorithm. You can align by hand.
Right.
It's a
You
pain.
just
Well,
need.
that would take a while.
It would take a long time, right? And it's a pain in the ass, especially when you've got, I don't know, you're trying to do 10,000 sequences from 100 different species, right?
Right.
Like, you don't want to do that all by hand, but you could, in principle, do it all by hand, and not even with a matrix worked out in advance. Just do it by eye, right? You could do that, and you'd be pretty close to right. You'd also be pretty close to killing yourself, but that's a separate point entirely.
Oh man.
Yeah, the thing here is that Maddox watched a video. He heard the word matrix. He saw something that looked technical. He thought I was going to ambush you with it, with some sort of assumption. And I'd like to see the video because they were talking about something about 30% or something. But anyway, then when you started pushing back on it, he asked you to explain to the audience so that they understand, because, of course, he's pretending that he knows, but he's hoping that you'll tell him. And he does this all the time.
It's a tactic I like to call intellectually flexing, where you don't really engage with your opponent. You just try to flex in an intellectual manner, show off how much you think you know about a subject, rather than actually trying to have a good discussion.
Yeah, and this is what kills me. I don't understand how they think they can go up against somebody who has a degree in this and get points like that. I don't understand what.
That also reminds me, Crispr, what kind of degree do you have? Just out of curiosity.
I'm in a doctoral program right now.
Oh, right. What are you going for?
A PhD.
Biology,
biochemistry?
He doesn't.
Evolutionary biology.
Okay.
Oh, sick. That's my major right now. I'm undergrad though.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, we're ready to roll.
Yep.
A alignment between two species of bluefin tuna. In the context of phylogeny, when you're trying to derive phylogenetic trees, what processes are being used in terms of the end conclusion of the phylogeny?
So if you've got two aligned sequences, right, you're basically counting differences. The math on this is not particularly difficult. It's just there's a lot of characters you got to work through.
Right. So what I'm saying is, in terms of the comparisons, what percentage of similarity of sequence is required to constitute evidence for phylogeny?
Is he struggling here?
He just said something on who you're asking.
Okay, but what are the different general standards? I mean, there's predetermined matrices, right?
Oh God.
Yeah, but again,
Okay, just
that predetermined
give me
matrix
a
is
second.
not being used
Foreskin.
to determine.
Foreskin.
Okay.
Okay.
So the thing that he's confused about here, a thing that he's confused about here, I can't give a definitive list, is that, so first, some of the Blossom substitution matrix is a deep homology sensitive matrix, right? And so it will work, in principle at least, at a very low percent, here's a critical word, identity, not similarity, because John does not know the difference between the words similarity and identity. And yes, it is intended to go down to about a 30% identity for a sufficiently long sequence, because you need a fairly large sequence for this to get a sufficiently high bit score for it to be considered a valid match, right? Because a 30% identity over 100 residues isn't great, right? But a 30% identity over 1,000 residues is a lot better. And also, the fact that you have a 30% identity, your similarity is often and almost always much, much higher, because he doesn't know the difference between those two words, right? Because different amino acids, if you have two different amino acids, that's always non-identical, right? You can never say that you have identity between two different amino acids, but you can often have similarity between them. And that's the bit he doesn't get.
Yeah.
One of them.
I might also be confused on how
that is
word
a
identity
bit he doesn't get. Again, I can't give a definitive listing.
Yep. Okay.
I might also be confused on how the word identity is being differentiated from similarity here.
Who said what?
I might also be a tad confused on how those two words are being
Identity
differentiated.
means identical.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right,
two
so
codon.
Like codon
one,
redundancy versus
you can say that on a scale of 1 to 100 that 17 is similar to 18, right? But it's not identical to 18, right? So the similarity of 17 to 18 on a 100-point scale is pretty high, but the identity is 0, right? So the identity of 17 to 18 is the same as the identity of 99 to 18. But the similarity of 17 to 18 is much higher than the similarity of 99 to 18.
That was such a beautiful analogy.
Okay, so an identity sequence more in general is taking two set of strings and comparing, I guess, line by line, which characters are identical to each other, and tallying.
Yes, that will give you. So yeah, 30% identity means that for every 100 residues, 30 of them are the exact same.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah, sometime when we have a lot of bandwidth, it'd be cool, Crispr, if you came in, we went and ran some blasts and maybe did some of this stuff in a video so people could see how it really happens, because it helps to see it happen, basically, to pick the parameters and the matrix and go ahead and blast something. If you'd be interested in doing that sometime, that would be cool. So.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think at some point in this, I recommend the idea of a journal club to see.
Yeah.
But which is different from what you're asking, but it's
yeah, but it's very similar. Another topic is how to research papers. For us lowlifes who do not have degrees, learning how to navigate PubMed and find citations and all of that. I've asked RJ to come on and do it. But if we had a little if we did a little hangouts like once a week or every 2 weeks and did a topic and actually showed some of this stuff, it'd be cool.
I'll tell you what you absolutely shouldn't do. You should never put the DOI string after sci-hub.tw when you can't get legal access to a paper.
No,
I know.
That would be
Never
a
do
violation
that.
of copyright and definitely shouldn't.
Right. And like Otangelo did on my goddamn channel a couple weeks ago. Like he had a link and I went to the link and it's like, oh shit, Otangelo. No.
This platform by no means endorses the use of
we don't endorse that.
Otangelo just showed up in the comments as well. Speaking of the devil, right?
Oh, Otangelo's here.
Oh damn.
Oh, Tangelo. Oh, Tangelo. Anyway, okay, roll.
Oh, Tangelo, did you bring me Jello today?
Should I roll?
Yes, let's roll.
Let's roll.
Phylogeny. It's being used to do alignments.
So are you saying that there is zero phylogeny that is derived from this?
What?
To the extent that you do your phylogenetic analysis after you do your alignments, right? You could say that you're deriving your phylogenetics from the from it, but that's a really weird thing to say, and it has nothing to do with like that level of similarity has nothing to do with the phylogeny, because again, when you start talking about that sequence similarity, that's basically how you start a seed, right? It's how you start a seed. I'm sorry. This is I'm maybe I'm using somewhat too technical a term here, but starting a seed is actually what we refer to, right? It's you got to find a bit to start from, right? A short sequence, some a kamer of some length, right? That you're trying to find where can I start growing this thing from to do a full length alignment. But again, this is actually really only relevant when you're talking about like next gen data. You don't generally do that type of thing for Sanger sequencing. Sanger sequencing would just feed straight in.
Okay.
Silence.
Well, it's interesting. We'll have to look into it in more detail because
to be fair,
the rather detailed lectures that were being given by
just
some of the people who derived this stuff
a link with a timestamp
were rather. I mean, he was pointing out that the vast majority of researchers were not using the analysis correctly, and were not applying the appropriate processes as they were doing their alignments and.
Well, let me ask you this.
I think, but I'll have to look at it in more detail. And,
feel free to shoot
detail.
me a link with the timestamp. But the thing is I think I've heard you talk about this before, something about a 30% number, right? And if we talk about the bluefin tuna, if you have a final alignment of 1,000 base pairs where you're getting like a 30% alignment on a gene,
I didn't know
that would
Brother
be
Otangelo was watching.
Odd, right? Like I've done this kind of work. I don't see that. I do not see that outside of if I'm. I don't know if I'm comparing some fairly well conserved genes between like frogs and plants or something, right? That then you'll see some really low percent similarity numbers. But again, the thing is that you can get much higher percent similarity numbers linking the two if you go species by species by species by species, right? It's only when you take the two ends of the string and compare them that then you get a really low number. I hope I said that in a way that was understandable.
So you're saying that there's comparisons between species, but if you compared like a starting point and an end point, then you have major differences. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. If you compare two things that are really, really far apart, then you'll get a low number. But if you go one by one from the start to the end, you'll get fairly high numbers all the way down the line. Or certainly nothing like a 30%.
So the string that you're following, I mean, that's assumption based, right?
Jesus
So there actually is a
God forbid.
string to follow.
Well, okay. So let me ask you this: if we were to take,
I'm asking, like, is that based on assumption?
so
So
everything in science is based on a set of.
Foreskin.
I'm not a programmer. I have a passing interest in the topic, but please tell me I'm not the only one that sounds retarded.
Yeah.
The question you just asked.
The thing he just asked about, like, assumptions. This is referring to like phylogenetic methods, right?
Yeah, he's asking if strings are assumptions.
Yeah.
They're not.
No, he's referring to the wording that I used, right? Because I referred to a like a string as in like a series
Yeah.
of organisms from which you have gotten these sequences, right? I don't think that he meant like a string as in, like you hello world is a string, right? I don't think
Right.
that's what he's talking about.
Well, keep in mind he's supposed to be a programmer.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't understand that we actually have data. I mean, this data is pretty powerful, and you can when you do these phylogenies, these things are based on
Math and statistics entirely.
Math and statistics,
and observation and experimentation as well.
And then if you look at, did God do it? Well, if God did it, then why did God's hand shake and we have these mutations?
Sorry, I gotta somewhat push back on that, because the thing is that there are assumptions that you have theory, okay, and theory informs, and you use that to develop new models that have additional assumptions within them, and those assumptions alter the way the data is processed so as to get slightly different numbers, and it turns out those numbers are better. They work more.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yes, there are more assumptions. There are complicated assumptions. It's not purely mathematical, but it works.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that all assumptions that are made have some kind of mathematical rationale to them? Like, even if they're not empirically derived?
Yeah, what would be an example of an assumption for like a Bayesian method phylogenetic tree?
Well, I mean, Bayesian is entirely. It's like when you do Bayesian, you're doing it based on like here are my
trials, right?
Here are my prior assumptions, right? Like what is my list of priors? That's the question you have to ask yourself when you're doing Bayesian. So like an assumption that you might make is that we found a fossil once that we're pretty sure came from one of these things we're pretty sure about this date. So that means that dates prior to that for this event are more likely than dates, than other dates, right? And so there's not a mathematical justification for that assumption per se. The justification comes from the fact that you found the fossil, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, there it is. We figured out the age. We looked at it carefully.
Specifically for like divergent states or phylogenetic trees in general.
Yeah, well, whenever you hear about somebody talking about like a fossil calibrated tree, right? That's what they mean.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so like specifically what I'm referring to is if you're using Bayesian method to create a phylogenetic tree of like Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, and you're not necessarily trying to calibrate it based on time or anything, like you're just trying to find a best fit phylogenetic tree. What are the underlying assumptions there, I guess?
You've got assumptions based on the types of mutations that you get, your base frequencies. It's the usual GTR, because you're probably not going to use Jukes Canner at this point.
Okay.
because, well, you've got a big computer now, so use the better model. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. There are a bunch of assumptions that go into it, and I mean, I don't think we want to go through all of them, but
Okay.
yeah, there are definitely a lot of assumptions that go into Bayesian, right? There's a lot of priors you can set.
Okay.
Okay, roll.
Yep.
Keep her moving.
Assumptions. And that's why I want to set this up for you, because it's a question of are the assumptions valid? It's not a question of whether it's based on
the point I'm making is the comparison that's being made from starting point A, and then if you look at point B, how much of a difference is there between point A and the endpoint Z?
I'm not sure if I got that. Can you try that again?
Well, I mean, one, are we saying that the end protein is the same?
What?
Or is it a completely different functional protein?
I think
generally we would say that it is performing the same function, or at least the ones that I'm thinking of would be.
Okay, so the folding is the same, and the end outcome is the same, or it has a completely different fold but has a similar functional outcome.
It's in the middle, but towards the it's more similar than you would expect, right? So one thing that I think a lot of people
No, we have to clarify here. The sequence is similar, or the end function? The folding
and the function, which, by the way, those are effectively the same thing.
Well, I mean, I know where I'm going with all this is it's been well documented that there's all sorts of proteins that have very similar end functions but dramatically different sequences to reach that end outcome. Is the point I'm making?
I don't disagree with the idea that you can have two different things have the same result, right? But you can also have
right. So what I'm trying to derive here is
I said that really badly, right? You can have two completely different things, completely different shapes, because remember that function in biochemistry comes down to shape, right? That is what's controlling, because this is all electrosteric interactions,
right?
So you can have completely different shapes that happen to have the same function, right? But also you can have two things that have different slightly different sequences, but still effectively the same shape, right?
Right, but what I'm trying to clarify here is, in terms of the line that you guys are following, are you deriving your similarity directly from the sequence, or from the shape, or both?
So
what I'm saying is supposed starting point, it has shape X and sequence X. Endpoint that supposedly you've been able to connect all these dots along the way for. Is it what are you now comparing that says that this is what came from point A? Are you directly comparing the sequence outcome or the shape outcome?
Herpes.
So I think I can answer this. It might take a bit. And this is actually conveniently.
Whatever the trigger word is.
What?
So, does Maddox not aware that, if I recall right, most times there are algorithms that will predict protein structure based on nucleotide sequence, that. Completely follow that, or
that's kind of a dark art, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, sure, there are programs that can do that. No,
that's a fairly common thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, but it's less of a pain in the ass than validating what the structure is using NMR and other techniques that you would have to go through to get that.
Well, I mean, the I would say you want to take a shot at it with an X-ray would be the best thing, but
Yeah.
crystallization's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, trying to get a proper crystal, bitch.
And I don't know if you've ever done protein crystallization. I did it once for a biochemistry lab. I have I got pictures somewhere of the protein I got to crystallize. I was very proud of it. No, it's not really that impressive. But,
a few people.
That's how I felt about the phage I isolated.
A few colleagues work in a lab that deals with glycochemistry, and occasionally they have to crystallize proteins.
Well, the thing is that the protein that we were working with crystallizes fairly readily. That's why we were working with it.
Okay.
Like it's just it's not. Yeah, it's some things you can crystallize, some things you can't. That's just the way it is. But no, the point I was trying to make though is that people get caught up on the idea that you have that you can have a massive impact on protein function from a single mutation, which is absolutely true. There's no question.
Yeah.
That you can have a huge change in the folding of a protein because you changed it a bit, right? It's absolutely true. But they take from that, and this is just a common thing with creationist thinking, is that because it's true it must be true at least most of the time. Which is wrong.
Well, yeah, and they assume that all mutations to if you were to take a protein and say length 150 and just mutate it anywhere, it just destroys the protein.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to guess at the percentage of single residue substitutions that will actually break the function. Well, so they might alter, all right. You might only have 95% activity or something, but like we're talking about a broken protein, so we need, I don't know, we need under 50%. Well, I just throw a number out. We need under 50% activity to really call it that. I wouldn't want to guess at the percentage of single residue changes that could actually do that.
I had a number somewhere. I think it was, I can't remember. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I think it was like 30% or something that don't have an effect or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be.
I think it's as high as 30.
It's a good number.
Yeah.
It's a pretty substantial percentage of the possible substitutions, right? That just, it's not that they don't do anything, it's that they don't break it.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't harm it in terms of the catalytic activity.
And the nice thing about it is that purifying selection kind of figures that out for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's obvious instances where in the active site, if you have, say, an arginine and you substitute that for, I don't know, a valine, that's going to fuck with the protein up quite a lot. Probably going to be loss of mutation.
Yeah, or start getting rid of the prolines or something. That's going to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the point is though is that. Oh yeah, so I was going to say that about purifying selection. So often, life doesn't really so much care about how well a protein works, so long as it's better than some minimum, right? And so if you have a change that has a 5% reduction in activity, it's not going to have a selective impact. It's just, it doesn't matter, because often these proteins are already like thousands of times higher activity than they really need.
Yep.
And so like you lose 10% or 20% or something, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Now, if it drops by like an order of magnitude or several, that's a different story.
Right. Exactly. Which again
Like-
can happen. You can have that, but you just can't treat it like it's everything.
No, you can't. And if you substitute like one of the side chains of like say an alpha helix in the middle of it for say like valine for glycine or alanine, probably won't do too much to it. Most times, alpha helices can be fairly stable unless you disturb it with a proline or something like that. Something that's
Yeah, 'cause, I mean that's gonna put a strong angle on there.
It'll cause it to.
Yeah, the example I always use is just alanine and valine. Like that, 99% of the time, you switch one of those for the other, it doesn't matter.
No, because chemically they're very similar to each other.
Yeah, one's a bit bigger. That's it.
Yeah, but other than that, their properties as being nonpolar are what really is factored in.
Yep. Should we roll?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Whoops. What did I do? What have I done? What have I done?
so let's say you take samples from not necessarily every species on Earth, but a huge variety, right? You're not being picky, right? You're just whatever it is, you're going to grab it, and you look and you see here's a protein doing some particular function. We find it in everything. Okay. You look at it and you see it's got about the same shape in all of them. You sequence it and you see that here's this list of sequences, and and if you take the most extreme difference, it's maybe, I don't know, it's 50% of the amino acids are not the same, right? But it's still got about the same shape, very close to the same shape, and it's still performing the same. It's still catalyzing the same reaction. Okay. So you do that. Now you have all of these sequences spread across life, and you line them up. You pick one arbitrarily, just throw a dart on the wall and pick one, and you line them up from most similar to that you picked arbitrarily to most different. And then you ask, okay, well, I call the first one A and call the last one Z, and things get complicated in the middle because we have more than 26, but you get the idea. How similar is A to B? Maybe there are no differences between A and B, right? You're going to have a stack that are all the same. And the same thing at Z. But at some point you got a difference, then another difference, and so forth. And you see that at no point are you getting like I think you said a 30% similarity, so a 70% difference. You just don't see that for these things. And now, another thing that is important to point out here is that,
right. Hang on. You're missing the point of where I'm going with all this. Is that in context of determining which one came from which?
None of them came from any of the others, because again, we're talking about sequences that are all from extant species, right? These are all living samples that we took these from, so none of them came from any of the others.
Okay, so this is my whole point. Now, going back from a phylogenetic perspective, how are you then, if everything you're looking at is extant, right? And literally every piece of DNA, other than a few fossilized components you guys have to analyze, is all from extant species, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that we've got anything reliable that's more recent than, maybe tens of thousands of years, and even that I find some of the paleogenetic stuff I find to be really suspect. Okay. I guess maybe if you're really good, you can do it, but
right. So I mean, I agree with you, and that's the point I'm making. Is so to how is what method and what formulas are being utilized?
So, CRISPR, you don't think some lab has like 1,000 DNA sequences that they've been able to take off of bones recently? So you said that was highly suspect?
It's just that it's so difficult, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have absolutely perfect technique, you're going to get contamination. And at the concentrations you're working with, any contamination at all is going to kill you. And it's just like I'm sure that the people who do it are really good at their jobs, and I'm sure that the results are really great and everything else. But you got to look at every single publication on that as inherently extremely suspect. Doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
But it gets a lot more scrutiny than, somebody tells me they sequenced a frog they just caught, right? Like, okay, I'm sure your DNA's fine, right?
Yeah, they. I think they're making some advances in their techniques, and particularly, their clean room techniques and all of that. And
yeah. So
just recently,
I just want to say, like, paleogenomics, as of right now, is kind of my dream field.
Yeah, it's hard.
Oh yeah. But I just think it's really cool because it's kind of like a window to the past, I guess. I don't know, but as far as I know,
if you're missing anything, you can just splice in some frog DNA. It'll fix it all up.
yeah, might as well. But the oldest genome we have, or the oldest, not even genome, the oldest genomic material is from a horse from Siberia from like 700,000 years ago, and the only genome that we have that's like actually worth a damn is Homo heidelbergensis from Cima de los Huesos, about 400 to 420,000 years ago. So
yeah, and I'm not saying that that's not. I'm not saying that that's not real, but like you just, I don't know.
No. I think dubiousness is fair, and I mean, like, especially like Cima de los Huesos, all we have is like the mitochondrial genome and then some nuclear DNA, but not even that much. Most of our genomic material comes from like the last 100,000 years,
which is tens of thousands of years.
Yeah. Well, I'm agreeing with you. So like, we're not sequencing anything that would be like a super ancestral population. Like any phylogenomic trees that we have is more or less already going to be like divergent into the specific lineages, with the exception of maybe like dogs, or like recent domestications.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sure you can get it from half a million years. Yeah, sure. I'm trying to think. I did the math once on the half-life for the
DNA
for the back. Yeah. Immutable knows the story. But not the phosphodiester, but just the backbone in general. And it's like 100,000 year half-life for the entire backbone. Phosphodiester is 33 million, but the entire backbone, because it doesn't break at that one, it breaks elsewhere. But it's not that long.
Linkage?
What?
The glycosidic linkage?
No. It's at one of the CCs.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah. No, not the glycosidic. No,
I know,
but actually that does happen a lot too. But that doesn't break the sequence up. It just, you can't resolve it, because if the glycosidic breaks, then you don't have a nucleobase anymore. You're just looking at a
right. You're looking at a nucleotide that's you're looking at a nitrogenous base that's attached to ribose phosphate that's been divorced from its ribose phosphate.
No, other way around.
Yeah, you're just looking at a hole, right?
You're looking at the ribose that no longer has the nitrogenous base.
Right. Yeah. Right.
They were claiming that apatite has some of the bone material. If the DNA is like close to that it has some preserving effect that they're relying on. That's kind of new.
Oh,
I'm not sure
that's the whole thing with what like Mary Schweitzer's doing and stuff, where she's like the certain proteins in the blood are like the iron or something is preserving certain proteins. That's where I'm very dubious of that kind of stuff. Like any proteomics of dinosaurs.
Look,
but
nice person. I've talked to her before. She's wrong.
About
she has not found soft tissue. She's found contamination, because the only labs that have reproduced her work are the ones that also keep their ostrich comparisons in the same lab. And that should be a giveaway. I don't know what else to say about this, right? She's just she's wrong.
That is suspect. That is quite.
All of the other labs have failed to replicate, and there have been a lot that have tried. I'm sorry, it'd be neat, and I'm not going to say it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's certainly not impossible, right? Because they always like to say it's impossible. Show me the math that proves it's impossible. It doesn't make any sense to say it's impossible. But it's just not there.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of it as well. Go ahead.
Roll.
Sure.
Roll.
Roll.
To then determine the phylogenetic tree from an evolutionary perspective.
So this is that's kind of an odd question, because you understand that when you do that with no other assumptions, right, they form a tree, because you will have the two that are the most similar to each other. Let's say that we started with all of the species, but then we pare it down so that we only have unique sequences, right? And then we'll have cluster A, cluster B, so forth, that are all the identical sequence. Okay, just for simplicity. So you have a pair of species that only have one difference. Okay, and then another species that has one difference from the two of those, and then one species that has a difference from the two of those, or however the tree might take shape. But in any event, when you group these by the degree of similarity, no assumptions at all, right? It's just how similar are they? How many changes does it take to get from A to B, right? It forms a tree. That's just the shape the math makes.
I have a quick.
And that does not mean that they are related. It's just that's the shape it makes. That's how node analysis works. I mean, you could draw it differently if you wanted, but that's just the way. That's just how you show that these sequences are more similar to each other than they are to this third sequence.
Okay, so I'm not talking about the similarity. I am talking about.
You ask how you make a tree. You ask.
No. I'm asking how you are being able. I mean, I get what you're saying on making sure. I'm talking about like how. What is the process by which we're not talking about just in terms of similarities, right? We're talking about this is the one that came first.
No, we're not.
So what I'm saying is, forget about which.
Oops. Okay.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. Why, Madoff? Why? This has been like an active question now for like 30 minutes, and he's given the same answer every time. Oh, go ahead. Rip the foreskin off.
Circumcision is circumcision play.
No. We can't forget about which one comes first, because it's the whole point.
But I just want to get to the point where I just want to make sure. I just want to clarify that before we do that we agree that even if you're only looking at extant species, right, and you're making no assumptions at all, it forms a tree.
I just have a quick question. If you throw your dart and it hits another spot, does the tree come out the same every time?
Yeah, that's called rerouting. It looks a little different, but it is actually the same.
It's almost amazing Daniel understands something for once, and that's not trying to be mean. I've talked to Daniel before. He's a sweetheart of a guy, but man, he can be dense at times.
Yeah. Okay, should I roll? I'm going to have to step away for 30 seconds. So if I roll, not the raccoons. I have to go open some windows. My air conditioner's broke.
Well, hopefully the raccoons don't come in and try and snuggle with you.
Okay, let's roll.
I got my window open and a fan in it, so it should be cool enough now. outside.
Getting there.
It has what is
26
called
here.
the same topology, right? And so topology is kind of an odd word because it basically means that it's the same shape from
I'm
some
also gonna
point of
step away
view,
and grab some
right?
water quick. I'll be
Kind of
back.
like how if you look at a cube, right? From one angle, it looks one way. If you look at it from another angle, it looks a different way.
I'm
But
back.
it's actually the same shape.
All right.
So it's the same with these trees. If you reroute it, it'll look to your eye. It will look different, but it will actually be the same.
Okay, but the order could change in similarity, correct?
No, because the tree is drawn on the basis of similarity. So the way that you root it doesn't change the similarity.
At least he's trying.
Silence? What's happening?
Are they just thinking?
Daniel
Okay,
has just
so
made
anyway,
solid point.
in the
There's nothing left to respond to.
What's that?
Daniel made such a solid point. There's nothing left to respond to. Don't you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So what the hell are they? What are they pushing back on exactly?
John is pushing back on the fact that I'm assuming he thinks that even if you can draw like based on the basis of similarity, you can't assume that's reliable because you haven't explained the origin of those genes, I guess.
So they're trying to make the Kent Hovind point that basically we just draw lines any which way we want.
No, John desperately, like at all points in time, wants to bring things back to either the ribosome or abiogenesis.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and they'll get there shortly. So, okay, rolling.
the context
Looks
of the what I'm more intrigued by is the
But first, I just want to make sure I'm not sure I heard you say. We do agree that it does form a tree on the basis of the math, right? Like that's just the form it takes. It takes the shape of a tree.
I mean, I can accept that portion of it. What I'm saying is that you
talk about what it means now. Now we'll move on to what it means.
And so the assumption that is being operated under is that that tree is derived from mutations, correct?
From similarity.
Did we lose him?
From similarity.
Nah, we may have. Let's see.
Yeah, he disappeared.
Oh, he's coming back. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Scared.
I think what happened is
I just want to say good night. That's all.
Have a good one, man.
I think that it may be because I clicked the camera, the start cam, and I do not have a camera on this machine, and then Streamlabs got confused and it moved me backstage.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so the real question is the building of the tree from the evolutionary model is that it is derived from mutations, correct?
So I think you mean the meaning of the tree from the evolutionary model, because again, the building of the tree is just based on differences.
No. I'm talking about the actualization of this tree that you're now being.
I wish you would say things without sounding so douchey.
How does it exist?
Yeah, I know.
In terms of the data, how does the data exist that you're being able to analyze? Is my point. It requires the extant species, which from your worldview is the end result of evolution, correct?
On the end result.
So, well, I mean, the data exists because I found a bunch of species and I stabbed them.
No,
and I took DNA back.
I literally just said that. The point
No,
I'm making
you
is now we have to look at the.
Yeah, you want to talk about what it means.
What is the origin of the data? Not in terms of how did you go scan it. I'm talking about how did the extant species come into existence for you to analyze.
Michael, foreskin.
So what I'm saying is,
okay, foreskin. Yeah,
Getting the
go ahead.
impression that Maddox has lost the ability to listen to people ever.
Yeah, and
Well,
the douchiness is basically from the and the condescension, and I just don't understand that when he knows he's talking to somebody that knows more than him.
I genuinely think like that's his mind trying to keep up.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
No, I apologize if Maddox hears this in the future and that sounds just genuinely offensive.
I wouldn't bother apologizing.
We've never said anything on this channel offensive about Maddox.
No, it's like you saying on like what kind of thing. I have so friends to do that, and I know for a fact they've lost some brain cells. But
everybody says, I noticed this when I first started listening to him. Everybody says not that kind of implies some sort of condescension. I mean, there's more to it, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's a tick.
The thing is him trying to like formulate a counter response to what's being said.
Yeah, it's oftentimes he's got a little nugget in his cheek. Like, he learned some new word or read some new paper, and he's just going to drop it on you. And that's kind of a tell with him. But I've listened to way too much of this motherfucker. Anyway.
Wait, so as a person who's viewing this for the first time, is he trying to take this back to like abiogenesis? Because he's my God. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
Because he's saying like, how did the species get here? What we're looking at is the final product. The answer is billions of years.
And the problem is, like, he just can't ask the damn question.
Yeah.
Right. If there's a question you want to ask,
right,
don't try to trick me into it. Just ask me the damn question. Why is this hard? Like, oh, well, what's the actualization of the data? Fuck, did you just ask me?
Yeah.
In any other context, what is the actualization of the blah, blah, blah? It's just like,
okay, but here's the other weird thing about
word salad.
We're talking about
you asked that question. Why are they different?
Yeah, that's. But here's the other thing too: is that it kind of surprises me that Maddox is like beating around the bush this much in this conversation, because like when I've chatted with him, if I go anywhere near like this level of like length with him, he'll immediately like push it to like within the first few minutes.
But ribosomal pausing.
But ribosomal pausing. But ribosomes. But protein. But amino acids. But something. And it's like,
well, one thing that was clear in this conversation is he knew that he was fucked as soon as CRISPR came into the room.
The thing is, it's really weird. There's a part of me that thinks Maddox has to know at some point, like that once he's hit a certain level with these people, he knows he's fucked. But it
takes him a while to figure it out, I guess.
No, I think it's his desire to like appear intellectual to people.
Yeah.
Like kind of just gives a system override to that. That's just like, fuck it. I'm a creator.
To the audience for me.
I know more than everybody. And I'm going to show that this evolutionist is wrong, even though I don't understand the difference between a ribosome and a ribozyme, and that I don't understand the difference between an L amino acid and a D amino acid.
My apt analogy for all of these people is that they're like teaching a parrot 100 words about genetics, and then you're sitting there in a chair, and every now and then the parrot says something that you're like, what did he say? Okay. He almost sounded like he knew what he was talking about.
Here's the thing, right? The level we're at, like with these individuals, and with Maddox particularly, is a child who has just been taught, or like just like said the word, dada or mama, and now believes that he is ready to read like Shakespeare or something, like from Victorian times. Mm-hmm. And it's just.
That's because they're not doing. Well, it's not really doing research. Studying is what they're doing. We could call it that even. But they're studying this not to learn anything and figure out the subject, its nuances,
debunk.
how we get the data. They're doing it. They want to learn just enough so that when they get into discussions with people who, let's be honest here, most people don't really know the stuff that you guys know and that these people talk about. The terms that Maddox says, like ribosomal pausing. So he learns enough about some terminology to stump the average debater who's not going to know this stuff. But they don't understand this at a technical or a rigorous level. They just
Which,
don't.
by the way, you want the quickest answer to anything he has to say about languages. You find me a language that works by sticking words to each other. And I mean, literally, you have to make the words and carve them into a shape and then get them to physically stick to the other words. Yeah. I don't think it's going to work on a macro human relative scale.
Right.
And then tell me what the rules are for how that works, okay? Because I don't think it's relevant.
Yeah, well, this whole thing with language and information is so ridiculously simple that it just drives me crazy. I don't even know where to dig in.
The way that the Brotherhood talks, I'll let you go immutable because I've already talked, so go ahead.
The thing is, I think of language as being like in the most abstract sense possible. Like it's a set of shared symbols, like between two agents, whatever those agents happen to be.
Yes.
But the thing is, like mathematically, I mean, I believe it was Claude Shannon who kind of, not first necessarily, but really kind of solidified the notion of information in a mathematical way. I haven't read the paper. I've had people like who are like extremely math oriented. That's their thing. Try to explain that to me, and I understand bits and pieces of it. But
bits, good one.
What?
Yeah, bits and pieces. Bits. Okay.
Yeah. The bits and pieces I've tried to like parse from that. Hold on, I'm not quite done. The bits and pieces like that I've tried to like parse from people explaining it to me, it's complicated as hell, but it's a functional model to describe information and information transfer between systems.
Well, that Kunin paper that we're supposed to go over really does a really good job of talking about the DNA strand as being a horizontal, and what you're really interested in is the changes or the conserved regions, and that's where you acquire a different you get into semantics. So the DNA strand and the Shannon information doesn't have a hell of a lot to. There's not a lot to learn about that. There's not a lot in there. So
Anyway, Brotherhood doesn't understand, and I would argue that a lot of theists, especially apologists, don't understand about information. Is they think that information is some non-physical thing that just kind of floating out there that we
they think it's abstract,
and that we can use that to learn about things. The best way I can describe information and show how it is how it has to be physical essentially is this. You can look at a ball. There's a lot of things about a ball. Well, number one, we're calling it a ball. That tells us that it has what we would call a geometric shape of a sphere. The shape of that ball is information, but it's physical. It's just nothing more than a description of the shape of a physically extant object or an extant physical object. The ball is green. Well, that implies that it is reflecting a particular frequency of electromagnetic radiation, i.e. it has color, which is another property of it and is information about the ball. Everything about color depends on something physical. Information is essentially the stuff that we can learn about things.
Yeah.
It tells us about something. You have to have a something that can be told about in order to have information. And not only that, you have to have an agent there that's capable of understanding the thing that exists in order for there to be information. Otherwise, you just have an object with properties. So information can only be physical, because if you don't have a physical thing, there's nothing there to be described. There's no properties to learn about. You don't have information.
That's where my debate with Maddox went sideways, is when he asked me if information or logic was, he said, I told him it was physical, and he he just freaked the hell out. But
I
anyway,
mean,
that yeah,
information is a property of physical things.
yeah, it's basically how things are arranged.
It's
in the
not
world.
itself a physical thing. It's
Yeah.
information is an abstract, but
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Although,
but
Well, the only abstracts are in our heads, so our pretty little
Well, it's an
heads.
abstract description of what a thing is. So you
Yeah.
could say you have a
Right.
green ball,
Well, no,
like
I
I
mean,
said, which is
information.
information. So,
Information is that which can distinguish one thing from another.
Yeah.
It's a 0 or 1 type thing. It's just the question of what is the 0 and what is the 1.
Right.
But yeah, it is an abstract. Abstracts are then the question is where are the abstracts stored, and the answer is well in
human
physical entities. So I mean,
Yep.
Well-
Let's roll. You want to roll?
there's
I think
another
the beautiful one. Yeah, go ahead.
especially like when we talk about abio, and I'll think about this position more and update it as I gain more information. But it seems that like the type of information that's like relevant to abio, I mean, if you consider chemical structure, the composition of the genetic code in terms of how it's formed, it seems that the bare bones of the genetic code is somewhat arbitrary as its nature. It doesn't seem that like the set of nitrogenous bases that we use are anything special. It seems that like general like organic compounds that share that property, be it nitrogenous or non-nitrogenous, could just as easily be used. And for similar reasons, I mean, there's people that suggest that the type of backbone that's used, which in biological systems is ribose, it doesn't seem that it needs to be that either. It seems that you could use glycerol or various other substrates to house or to kind of hold these phosphodiester bonds. It could be I'm just completely wrong on that, but some of the research seems to state that the way the information is transferred between these systems doesn't seem to be anything that's unique necessarily to our familiar form of biological life. I don't know. Maybe CRISPR has something to say, or
well, I mean, if your point is that that there are a lot of ways that you could encode some kind of biopolymer, right?
Yeah.
That could then be, that could be sort of arbitrarily produced and then linked up in an anti sense. Because I think that the anti-codon portion of it is the real vital bit, right? Like you got the and the way that that ribose sort of is able to enforce that that reverse complement conformation. That I think that is actually really critical, and I'm not sure that you could get an efficient biology otherwise. I wouldn't put money on that, but it's where I stand.
But you don't think you could say so? You don't think you could substitute, say, like ribose for a different sugar, such as I don't know, fructose or galactose or one of the other like major sugars that occurs?
I mean, could you? Maybe, probably.
There has to be a sugar somewhere.
Well, I don't know. I don't even know that there has to be a sugar somewhere. I'm just saying that there are certain aspects of it that are fortuitous, right? Like there's it's a good system to use. It's not like, which is probably how it ended up being the one that worked. But because remember, life is basically just a really complicated way of increasing entropy. That's what we do. We increase entropy faster than anything else, So we happen.
Yeah.
Ready to roll, guys?
Yeah. It just seems like based on that description alone, you could have a very large amount of lifelike systems that could do that, I suppose.
Huge variety that you could have. I'm just not sure how likely the others are. I don't know how likely the one we have is.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least I know that this one does work. So that's
it's one that it's at least one of the
we have a sample size of 1, and that one is DNA. So
right.
Well, RNA actually. We are not DNA based life. We are RNA based life, and we always have been. I don't know why people talk about RNA world. It's still an RNA world.
Yep.
Still right now.
It's an RNA world. Just ask the viruses about that one.
Just ask yourself.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, the RNA is the thing doing the work.
Yeah, the RNA. Well, the multiple classes of them do a shit ton of work for the cell.
Yet, like for instance, every aspect of protein synthesis.
Yeah. tRNA, mRNA, and all the other ones.
Actually slamming the things together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still an RNA world. I don't know why people fight that. It's RNA world.
Not that I'm doubting what you're saying, because I don't, but could you extrapolate, I guess, what you mean when you say that?
When I say what?
That it's still an RNA world.
Oh, because so so if you look at a ribosome, right? If you look at the catalytic functions of it, it's ribozymes doing the work. It's not protein-based enzymes doing the work. The actual work of polymerizing the amino acids. The amino acids are put together by ribozymes. They're put together by pieces of RNA. Okay. And the sequence information is brought in by pieces of RNA. And the amino acids are brought to that sequence by pieces of RNA.
Well, they're brought in by proteins, aren't they? Amino acyltransferase proteins?
They're brought in on tRNAs.
What is?
Amino acid.
Oh, yeah.
And
you're right.
And the transferases, there are limited transferase catalytic, like autocatalytic properties on some of them, and so you can actually get some, and then this gets into how you actually get the codon chart development, but this is not relevant. The point is that you make proteins with RNA.
Yeah.
Not just that's where the sequence comes from. That is the hammer and anvil of the whole thing, right? Like you.
Yep.
Sorry,
I thought that's what your answer was going to be, but I didn't want to just assume that and not ask and end up getting it wrong. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, and I believe, let me look it up again before I make a stupid claim. I'm tempted to say, I think the spliceosome is a protein complex, but it might be a ribozyme. Let's see.
Sorry, what is?
The spliceosome?
It is a complex of both.
Yeah, so it's a ribozyme technically.
Yeah, unless I'm not remembering correctly. But
yeah,
so the thing is that proteins are much better structurally than RNA. RNA is kind of crap at structure. It can be pretty good. It can be pretty good at catalyzing reactions, but not so great at structural stuff. And so it seems like if you go through the ribosome and you look at what the protein is doing, it's doing structural stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff could be done by RNA. And in fact, it could be done by DNA fairly readily. But protein's just really good at it. So
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, there is in general, I believe, is a statement. It is correct that ribozymes have how to say this, a more versatile ability to catalyze chemical reactions than proteins do. Like there's some chemical reactions that are better for handle than proteins.
It's like we had this man Demeter in 11th dimension, and he was talking about it. He has a hypothesis in abio, and it's RNA stabilized by small peptides, and it's a generative system where it increases its complexity. But I think it's peptides and RNA together that create the magic. And his theory was that they came up together, and that basically Darwinian selection was present from the very, very beginning of abio. And it's a very interesting man. We're going to have him back in again sometime next month.
I was going to ask you before you left our little powwow before all this. When is this whole thing going to get scheduled? When is it going to be?
It says sometime in September.
Okay.
Let's see. I was trying to read something here.
I've asked you that like 3 times, and I just keep forgetting what you say.
Yeah, so we haven't set it up yet, and so we're trying to get it set up. And Aaron Ra is supposed to be in on it too.
Yeah, so if you don't get Aaron Ra, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah, well,
I believe
Demeter wants him, so and he said he would show up.
Yeah, Demeter's opinion, if I recall right, is that the relationship between codon assignment and amino acids, like in a prebiotic setting, are intrinsically and inseparably linked to each other.
Yeah, but he goes way back, even before that, with this mess of RNAs stabilized by small peptides, like in that diagram we were looking at. Really interesting, but we'll get into it. But we should roll. What do you think?
Go for it.
I'm up for it.
Okay. Everybody's still awake?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
From your worldview, did all these species and the genomes you were able to sequence and analyze, did this tree ultimately, from your worldview, build itself up through mutations and natural selection?
Yeah, that seems to be the most consistent with the data from what I've seen. But the thing is that I don't need that assumption to make the tree. I make the same tree either way.
I understand that, and you can make the exact same logic in any type of hierarchical programming language. I mean, the exact same logic would apply.
Jesus Christ!
Into basically anything. So I mean, I don't really care about your tree. Is where I'm going with this. I understand you have a tree, and I understand you're pulling it from a mathematical perspective. I get all that whole piece. What I'm now arriving at is how, from your worldview, did the data that you're now being able to analyze, how did it come into existence and ultimately form itself into this tree that you're being able to analyze?
So at this point, how caught off guard were you by that question?
So it seems.
Did you say foreskin?
You mean
foreskin?
In the sort of disorganized and douchey way he asked it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, it just came out of really nowhere. Like, it wasn't relevant to anything you've said this far.
Yep.
Well, actually, so that's the thing is, like, you need to listen to that again, because it actually is. It was just asked in such a asininely dickish way that I think you may have missed what he was asking, which is understandable because, there's a real dick way of saying that. I mean, I don't.
Okay, so from what I understood,
his question was, why is it? If you believe that evolution is true, why is it that animals have the differences that they do, such that we see the relationships between them that we see. That was his question.
That's not what
Okay.
I got out of it. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
because
I rolled it back a little bit. So let's do it again.
I just wanted to say one really quick thing, because John always brings up something to do with computer programming or computer science. I would pay money, probably a lot of money, depending on how much I had available, to watch, and not even a debate, just them two. That was a terrible way of saying it. Those two, sorry, I'm a grammar Nazi even with myself, have a discussion, and that's Maddox and Landon Kirtnell, who is not just a professional computer scientist, is a professional mathematician and astronomer.
Yeah.
And has to be one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. He's studied under Richard Feynman. He's had conversations with Leonard Susskind. He's had conversations with Stephen Hawking. I mean, it's just, and just because Landon is the kind of guy where he's a very, very nice guy, but if you are wrong on something, and if you don't understand it, he will just say it like, yeah, you're just wrong. I don't think you get this. He's not a dick about it by any means. He's very respectful about it. And it would drive John up the wall in the way that John is very just himself. I'll just say that when he talks to people, because it's just Maddox. It's just Maddoxing. That's what I'm going to call it. Landon doesn't stand for that. And God, a discussion between those two would just be so It wouldn't be a dumpster fire, because that's just Landon wouldn't let that happen. But oh God, just I want to see how Maddox would respond in a discussion with somebody like him. And if you know who Landon is, then I don't have to say anything. If you don't, just watch videos of him. Just watch videos of him. That's all I can say. Just read up on him.
Might be able to set that up.
I mean,
ask Maddox, because I know somebody that could ask Landon this question. So if Maddox is down, it comes down to whether Landon would want to do it. But for them to have a discussion about like genetics and coding and how they relate to each other, Landon would probably be down for that.
Yep.
I don't know for sure, but that would just be fun. Oh man, I get a little chub thinking about it. I really do. I get a little chub.
Let's play this. Consistent with the data from what I've seen, but the thing is that I don't need that assumption to make the tree. I make the same tree either way.
I understand that, and you can make the exact same logic in any type of hierarchical programming language.
That doesn't make any sense.
Logic would apply into basically anything. So I mean I don't really care about your tree. Is where I'm going with this. I understand you have a tree, and I understand you're pulling it from a mathematical perspective. I get all that whole piece. What I'm now arriving at is
he
how,
doesn't.
from your worldview, did the data that you're now being able to analyze, how did it come into existence and ultimately form itself into this tree that you're being able to analyze? From your worldview.
So it seems as though if we look at a small group of organisms, right, we can actually see these trees form, and we can tell empirically that they're forming because there's an accumulation of mutations in the different lineages, right? And so we do tend to think that we know that this process occurs. We know that the result that it creates matches what we see in the full tree of life, which again, when I say the full tree of life, I just mean the thing that is formed mathematically from all of the sequences, right? That the process that we know occurs can produce the data that we see, right? And so it does sort of make sense that, well, if you work that back, where does it end you up? It ends you up at a single population, right? That works. And it seems as though that assumption ends up being consistent with all of the data. It doesn't make it true, but if you make that assumption, it leads you to make predictions, and those predictions end up also being correct. And that further supports the idea that maybe this is probably right. But again, my point is simply
something that's referred
you
to
don't
as
need it
predictive
to make
power.
the tree, and the tree is the thing that matters.
Okay, so all the different trees that show up don't negate the 100% accuracy that you're referring to?
So the first thing is, I don't recall saying 100% accuracy.
Exactly. I was gonna say what?
Okay, well, you were implying that it's
No, it's not.
reasonable to conclude based on credible assumption.
The skin of 4. Or maybe it's the aft skin. I don't really know.
I don't know. It just he wasn't saying that at all. Where in any conversation was that pulled from?
Oh, Johnny boy.
Johnny, it's just.
This is why I say I don't think they really. This is why. This is how you know they don't know that much, because they have discussions with like literal professionals, like right now, and the statements they're making and the questions they're asking don't even make sense if they even have relevance. Like, how do you presume to understand what you're talking about? Go ahead.
I will say that I almost always avoid making absolute statements, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Which is something that you see from a lot of professional scientists.
No, but this is a simpler error. This is a matter of just straight up lying. It's either that or Maddox hasn't been paying attention to this conversation. I mean, this is one of the things where
that one,
huh?
He probably wasn't paying attention.
No, Maddox listens to.
Go ahead. This is just one of those things where, like, you have a 5-year-old niece, and you tell them, "Don't put your hand on the stove," and what do? They think they're a smart ass, and they put their hand on the stove.
Their dick on it.
Burned. Sorry, what?
I said they put their dick on it.
Yeah, and Maddox, if you tell him his dick's going to burn, he keeps it on there because he's that masochist.
He's all about the dick and the cojones.
Well, so just as a point of comparison here, I don't know how much attention John was paying, but like, I think that I was drinking at this point in this conversation. So
as you should.
I don't blame you at all.
You gotta do what you gotta do, my guy.
I just hope I still get my debate with Matt.
There's only one question left to ask. How many drinks in?
I don't know. It was pretty good tequila though, so
there we go. Doesn't matter.
Roll.
Yep.
Let's go.
Let's put it that way, since you're obviously going to play the semantic game.
Semantic game. And a question
I don't think that you get 100%. I don't think you get 100% certainty for anything, right? Especially not in the sciences, right? So that's just
that's obvious. So I mean, I'm not really. I wasn't making that.
Then why'd you fucking
I wasn't suggesting you were, so I'm not really sure where you're trying to go that.
Because you said 100%.
It's just condescending.
Okay, it's euphemistic. But the point I was making is,
oh my God,
there's been a variety of the more analysis. Okay, the point where I'm going with this is the more analysis we do, the more various potential trees are being derived. Correct, mathematically.
What the fuck?
I'm not sure what you're referring to with this. If you're referring to the very base of the tree of life, things get really complicated because evidently, well, first, there's just a lot of horizontal gene transfer that occurs with simpler organisms. They tend to have a lot of horizontal gene transfer. It just seems to be the way things work. And again, we can see that empirically now. That
how
organisms?
How do you know that?
Hang on.
How do you know?
Because we look. See.
Somebody say foreskin.
Foreskin.
So who interjected
look around? We look around with our eyes. That's how we know.
Brown just said, like, how do you know horizontal gene transfer occurs? Because it occurs. That's just what
it's like asking, how do we know that stars emit electromagnetic radiation?
Well,
the thing I wonder.
The funny thing to me about that is that after I say we can show this empirically now in these groups, he asked, well, how can you say that you know that?
Yeah. Was that Iger Television?
The words I just said. The words I just said are how you can know.
Oh, brown. Okay.
No,
Iger Television injects a few things here and.
Iger Television, towards the end, he goes off on just like evolution is a lie. Like,
yeah, I know he gets weird.
Oh, is he the one Is he the one I said I felt the spontaneously generated tinfoil hat?
I don't know.
Yes, that's the person you directed that at. That too.
Yeah, that's what I get from Jason Ezard. I think it's
Jason Ezard.
He doesn't have just a tinfoil hat; it's a tinfoil fucking costume.
That's a tinfoil suit.
Professor Chaos on us. I don't know if any of you are going to get the Professor Chaos reference. Probably not.
No.
South Park.
Roll? Are we rolling?
Action.
Are we rolling?
Happen outside of the prokaryotes, right? Or in very simple life forms, right?
Sure. So if you want to start the tree at eukaryotes, right? If that's where you want to start, let's ignore everything more basal than that. Okay. Let's just look at some protists, fungus, plants, and animals. Right. You get pretty clean trees. You get branches moved around here and there, especially as you get towards the tips. And then also there are a couple of short branch lengths that tend to be kind of hard to resolve, especially when they're not many surviving lineages, right? So if you got the single surviving lineage that's way out there, what is the Tatara, for instance? That's what it's called. It's kind of hard to place for a while.
Tuatara? Is that what you're saying?
We
that's what I
figured
was
it
looking
out,
for.
but
I've been
hard to
drinking
place
again.
It's the only one.
Yeah, Rhinocephalians.
That does make it difficult, but like the big branches, they don't move around much.
Okay.
I think that's your question.
I don't think so.
He doesn't want to admit that it does.
Okay.
He doesn't have
I just want to ask.
Okay.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, basically,
You know, I just kind of want to get a consensus vote here. Don't dare take this for an authority vote. Does anybody else think that John doesn't understand, number one, like the type of question he's asking, and number two, like he doesn't have an expectation for the type of question, like he doesn't have an expectation for the answer to the type of question he's asking.
Well, that's exactly what it is. He's asking questions he thinks can't be answered on your worldview.
Yeah.
So he's not anticipating any coherent answer. So when he gets one, and often coherent answers to these kinds of questions can be somewhat long-winded, and he just doesn't understand the answer at all because there wasn't supposed to be one.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it kind of sets him back.
Yeah.
Was that a horribly complicated answer that I gave to his
question? No, it's not that they're complicated. It's just like I can't think of any immediate simplistic examples off the top of my head, but I might get questions in physics about something. Like, say, if somebody might ask me, what exactly is, this quantum vacuum that I always hear of? I can explain what it is. I can explain it to a 12-year-old if I really wanted to. It's going to be simple, but it's going to take a little bit to really lay out what this is and what's going on. So when you're explaining something technical like that, and I'm sure that you know this being a professional and probably having done it thousands of times, at least hundreds, that certain things can be simple as an explanation where people can understand it well in an intuitive manner, but it still takes a little bit of time to explain what it is, generally because you don't want to give too technical an answer. I could answer a lot of questions that I get asked very, very simplistically, very succinctly, but the person that's asking the question is not going to get it at all. So I'm assuming here you were probably giving the benefit of the doubt and assuming that John probably does not understand this and going for explaining it in a little bit more simplistic way that you're expecting people are going to understand. So that leads to a little bit, I don't really want to say long-winded, but that leads to a more elaborate explanation. Doesn't mean it's complex. And then I think a lot of times that just goes over people's heads. Oftentimes because they're asking questions they weren't expecting to get an answer to, and then they did, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what now? Where do I go now? And that's why there was that long pause.
Yeah. Okay, rolling.
Yep.
Rolling.
Rolling.
And butthole
So,
swollen.
do you feel that the tree of life that we're talking about? Do you feel that there's been a lot of problems with the congruency between protein sequences and DNA sequences, not really telling the same story? Because
What?
there have been papers written where basically,
Present the
it's been saying that the tree of life basically doesn't exist. Matter of fact, I believe you know about Craig Venter basically telling everyone that the tree of life is an artifact of
Oh my God.
something that just haven't really panned out. Not only that, even evolutionists is referring to the tree of life as a bush of life.
Let's
So they're
go
having
bush.
to change the philosophy, okay,
like
and
they do the
downgrade it
analogy
and
be
backpedal
literal.
back to a bush of life. Okay.
So you know that a bush, like a bush, starts from a single. It still does start from a single point, though. There is like a unifying point in a bush.
Okay, but hold on.
You can't see it from a distance. Like you can't see the tree.
Okay, hold on. But you use it. But the thing about it is, the whole point is, you couldn't get the tree to work. Okay, the tree. Hold on 1 second, please. You couldn't get the tree to work. Now it's been downgraded to a bush. That's
knows
the
what an
rescue.
analogy is, right?
Okay, so now we got to find a way to make this bush work because the tree failed. Okay.
Shrubbery.
What does he have against
Shrubbery?
Shrubbery. Wait, foreskin.
Analogy is actually
Shrubbery.
Foreskin? Are you foreskin?
He just reminds me of like Drax the Destroyer. He's like, where I come from, they have no analogies.
Who the hell is C. Brown anyway? What the hell?
I
What
haven't
thing
seen
is
him
he?
before this either.
Wow.
That was fucking funny. I hope I catch him in one of Smoky's hangouts or something, because, God, that's going to be comic.
I might actually get that printed on a t-shirt.
What exactly?
The whole thing.
The statement should not be taken as racist, and it isn't since Leo is here. Does he remind you of all kind of like a toned down like black preacher?
He does remind me
exactly
of a preacher.
what-
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me, sir.
Well,
Excuse me.
Of God.
It's his suit and some of the things that he says.
From the skies.
Evolution is a religion.
Okay, let's.
Those heathenistic evolution spouters.
No, he does come off as a preacher. I thought he was actually just listening to him on other streams.
There is a whole category, and I know a lot of black atheists that say this. They call them preachy black people.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
They sound
Okay.
like if you went to your Southern
Issue
Baptist
that-
church, they sound like that guy on the altar.
That Venter was actually referring to is actually exactly what John and I were talking about a second ago with the issue of horizontal gene transfer. And you cannot capture the issues associated with horizontal gene transfer with any kind of plant-based metaphor, okay? Because a bush is still, right? A bush is still growing from a single point. It's just hard to tell kind of where this is. But the point of horizontal gene transfer is that actually, like these things are kind of like growing into each other. Like you get like A moves to B, moves to C, moves back to A, and like because that's
But that only happens. But the horizontal gene transfer only happen on the really simple or extinct. Exactly. Okay, so hold on for a second.
No, let me just. I
So
got
how do
another
you-
point. You gotta let me
Okay,
make
go
one
ahead.
Because if you started, if you ignore everything that is on the other side of basal eukaryotes from us, right? The tree's pretty clean. It's only when you try to incorporate all of prokaryotes with eukaryotes with archaea that it gets really, to use the phrase I don't like, that it gets really bushy.
Okay, but here's a problem with that. Just the mere fact that they're similar, meaning they're going to have similar genes and they're going to have similar structures. So that really doesn't make your case because you got to start from. Hold on for a second. You got to start from bacteria or one cell creatures or whatever you want to do. Okay. See, the whole thing is I'm hearing a lot of backpedaling. Okay, starting with Richard Dawkins. Okay, this backpedaling.
What?
Backpedaling.
Okay.
Backpedaling.
Okay.
The fact that he
So-
said one cell that just tells you everything you need to know. It's just.
And I think we're about to get to the gift I want to give all of you guys from this, which is how you deal with young Earth creationists who want to talk about abiogenesis.
No, the 1+1.
No, well, not yet. Yeah, basically, which is that if you want to talk about abiogenesis, that's fine. Just go ahead and first admit that you agree with all the rest of evolution and that young Earth creationist is bullshit.
Yeah, but did
You
you
do
know
that? You do that for me, and then we can talk about abiogenesis. But until then, let's do the easy stuff first.
Yeah.
But the
Let's
thing to
take it a
notice about them is that they got it completely fucking backwards. They didn't even understand your analogy.
And now they're backpedaling because of it. It's
Well,
just
because
okay,
I made the
objection
mistake of
on their
using a mathematical analogy. With
part. See, I
you
understand
can't
it
do
perfectly.
math.
It's the branching factor that is why we call it a tree.
Yeah.
Because trees have branches.
Or is it a bush? Or is it some other shrub?
Well, the thing is, bushes still have branches.
Yeah. Okay, let's roll.
No, wait.
What?
Yeah,
What I
he's
was
the one
trying
that
to
forced guy.
So the point I was actually wanting to touch on is the point that Steve Brown tried to make in his statement about like, oh well, you're assuming that they would have similar sequences. No, if horizontal gene transfer is present, then that's what's going to happen. Like,
well, you're talking about eukaryotes, right? Like the basal eukaryotes.
Oh,
and
okay. I thought you were
but
talking
the common design argument is stupid.
He was
Like-
just trying to bring in the design arguments.
Yeah, he was trying to say like there's common genetics because it's common design, but that's such a dumb argument because there's like protists that are more similar to us than like the protists are to plants, and there's other protists that are more similar to plants than they are to us. And these protists are super divergent, but like at the same time, they still function fairly similarly, right? That's that whole argument about like a common design, common designer.
This is something that's
flat.
been really getting me over the past few days, which is I've heard them talk a lot about some issues relating to convergent evolution, right?
Oh, God.
And the thing about convergent evolution is I'd like them to give me a single example of convergent evolution that is not completely distinguishable and resolvable on the basis of morphology
and genetics.
Oh my god!
No, I'm leaving genetics off the table. Morphology alone.
Yeah.
So, and I do not think they can do it.
No. So the thing is, you would want to talk to Smoky about that because holy crap!
Right.
That's one thing I want.
But this is actually this is actually the same problem John was having earlier, which is they don't understand the difference between similarity and identity. Because if I look at a shark and a dolphin, right, you can say that the shape of the body is similar. But if you look at a dolphin and a human, what you see is that the developmental patterns are not just similar, they're identical. Until you get to the ends of the process that actually make it a dolphin. But you know what I mean, right? That there is identity there, right? And when we study evolution, people think we care about the differences or the similarities. We care about the identities. That's what matters, because that's the thing you can't fake.
Yeah.
And the thing is if you're talking about common design, there's no reason why a common designer would not have taken identical bits from a shark and used it in a dolphin.
Yeah.
But you never see that.
Yeah. For me, they always choose like the worst examples of convergent evolution as well. Like they're always like, oh, the platypus, a perfect example of convergent evolution. And I think it shows that these guys really don't know much about the natural world. They just want to like hone the opposition. You know what I mean?
And the other thing about intelligent design is if you look at the mistakes, the mutations that don't matter, right? And they end up on these trees. There's no reason for that to happen. If I mean, it's like the designer had a shaky hand, and he made a mistake, but the mistake got propagated making it look like a tree, like phylogeny. It just doesn't make any goddamn sense. Anyway.
Right. Or you know what else a designer could do is if you have a bunch of regions of proteins that don't matter what the actual sequence is, you
That's
can
what
just
I mean.
use something. You can use something random for the whole thing,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so they're all random. It's randomized every single time, or it's completely the same every single time. Those are both make perfect sense from the point of view of a common designer.
Yeah,
right?
but those random
Or-
numbers are propagated, or those random.
No, they
yeah.
can't be propagated. That's the thing, is that if you are using random numbers to make what's the creationist bullshit term, Berriman?
Yeah.
The
Berriman.
original created kinds, they're random. So if you try to make phylogenies for gene A, you would get one tree. And then
Right.
for gene B, you would get a completely different tree. And then for gene C, you would get a completely different tree again. And then a completely different tree again. So you would get completely different gene trees for
That wouldn't connect.
every single gene. There would be no congruence between any of these gene trees, right?
Yeah, that was
Because all of them are random.
That was
right.
the point my tired old mind was trying to make.
And,
So.
Right, or they could be identical for all of them, right? And so, but the point is, there would not be a correlation in the in the degree of relatedness of the sequences for one sequence versus another. But there is a degree of relationship of correlation of relationship between each of the different gene trees. And sure, sometimes gene trees are different than species trees. That happens. I mean, if we want to go into an independent lineage sorting, we can. But it does happen. But like,
it's not at a wide scale though. Normally,
it's not. Well, it's pretty common when you have short branch lengths, but
yeah,
it is not a problem when it comes to resolving the family level tree of life, right? For eukaryotes or something, right? It's a non-issue for that.
No, that's what I was saying. It's not a pervasive issue at macro, above the species level, and then also.
Well, no, by definition, it's above the species level.
Oh yeah. But I don't know. I'm tired. I'm having a hard time phrasing my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm tired too.
What was I gonna say? Incomplete lineage sorting. It's not pervasive throughout the entire genome. You might have one or two genes that don't line up, but out of tens of thousands, it's change.
So if you have independent lineage sorting, it almost by definition, it's affecting all of the genes.
Okay.
Because that's why it's a problem.
Really?
Well, no,
I thought it was energy, specific to certain genes.
Yeah, it would be there'd be a mix. So you wouldn't get incomplete sorting. So.
Right. So you wouldn't if you have when you're talking about this, you're talking about it has to be a set of three species, right?
Yeah.
And so say it's true that A and B are closer to each other than either is to C.
Mm-hmm.
And yet some gene trees will show that A is sister to C,
mm-hmm.
right? And some gene trees will show that B is sister to C, and some gene trees will correctly show that A and B are sister to each other. And so the question is, what percent of the genes have the correct topology versus one of the two incorrect topologies? And it's not like there are some genes that are more likely to have a wrong topology than others. It's that like independent. Like each gene has to go one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what
independently.
Like,
so it's across the entire genome.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Like, it's not like specific genes, but I'm saying like 3 or 4 that are incompletely sorted, like out of 10,000 protein coding genes, isn't.
No, but I'm
is
sorry,
like chump
it's not-
change. Is that not?
No, it's not.
Okay.
You can't. So you can't say 3 or 4 that are incompletely sorted, because
Mhm.
it's not. First, it's not.
Oh yeah, it's not. I get what you're saying.
So it's not going to be. Firstly, you have to. If I come up with this arbitrarily, then I can say what's true, right?
Mhm.
But when you're working with real data, you can't say what's true. You have to infer what is true from the data, and so you don't know if. So if you have 3 genes that are where the gene tree is different, that's okay. That's not a problem, right? You wouldn't even talk about that as ILS, right? But
Mhm.
when you have 20% or 30%, well, that if you have 30%, remember it means 30%, but you have 3 options, so it's like the same. Like, which one is right? They're all
Mhm.
even.
Well, how often is that? Like, how common is that discongruency? Like that level of discongruency, to where it's like 20 or 30%. Is that like fairly likely, or?
Well, so the nice thing is that most species don't live that long.
Yeah.
So most short branch lengths end up getting resolved because there's only a few surviving branches.
Mhm.
That's
a push of the past, right? Like survivorship bias.
Well, it's pull of the modern.
Oh,
but yeah. But yeah, it's and so you also have the problem that the reason that there seem to be more species now than there were in the past is because we can actually go out and find them all now. But that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
So
can I ask just a quick question? What you said, it popped an idea into my head. I've heard this. I've heard it from fairly reputable sources, but I want to know from all of you guys, because you guys, many of you are actually professionals or have been studying this for long enough. I mean, I don't really know that much, but is it true to say that if we got rid of every aspect of the fossil record, every piece of data that it has ever given us completely, but we still had genetics, that we would still have more information from genetics than what the fossil record could ever give us?
Fossil record can help inform some of the dates, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that would be a true statement that the genetic record could tell us more than what the fossil record ever could, or is it not really a cut and dry?
So for instance, when we ran all the genetics, what we would learn, for instance, is that all birds are more closely related to crocodilians than they are to anything else on the basis of genetics. And so now we know that birds are archosaurs. We would never know that they are dinosaurs because we would never know about non-avian dinosaurs.
I gotcha.
But we would know that they're archosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that we know that they and we would know that the archosaurs fit in with the turtles and reptiles, and more closely than they do to mammals, and that, by the way, here's this group of fish that are closer to all of the tetrapods, because the coelacanth is somehow genetically more similar to mammals than it is to other fish. What's going on there? That's weird.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess what that means. So yeah, you can figure it out.
Mhm.
Should we roll?
Keep her
Yes.
moving.
Keep
Keep
it
moving.
moving. Okay.
Basically, hold on for a second. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, Steve Brown was
So
talking.
so now this didn't
Yeah, I
work. So
I was
now
expecting-
you're repositioning yourself and you're trying to make sense of it. You're gonna keep the theory going. So if one avenue don't work, you're gonna go down another avenue. That don't work, you're gonna go down another one. And the whole thing with the horizontal gene transfers, you can't prove that
Okay, so
because
I'm sorry. I gotta.
Isn't that kind of science?
Yeah, you start with what you know, and then you go off of that. If you go a certain way and say, "Oh, this way doesn't look to be correct," then yeah, you find a different way to go. That doesn't mean that the precedent that you're working from isn't still a valid precedent to work from. I don't get how people can make the statements that they do about science, like the Brotherhood, as we're seeing here, does, and then in the same breath, literally like he just did, make a statement that is essentially a concession by all rights of their ignorance of science.
Yeah.
I don't fucking get it.
Okay, let's roll.
None of us do.
I gotta say, if you're saying that it didn't work, you're just wrong. Okay, it worked to the point of eukaryotes. Now, if you want to accept evolution with common descent all the way to the point of eukaryotes, fine. Okay, like I'm not gonna. And that's actually so. I think that this might be something that that Smoky had wanted to talk to me about, which is like what actually motivates me in these conversations. And the thing is there's only a fairly narrow range, and so if people, I don't mind people who think that people who think that there's intelligent design, that like you had to have a guiding hand of God to make all this happen. I don't believe that, but like if that's your deal, then I'll let you be. Right? It doesn't bother me at all. Again, it's not my position, but it's fine. And honestly, even if you want to argue that it's impossible for abiogenesis to happen, I take issue with the word impossible. If you say it's improbable for abiogenesis to happen, okay, it's fine, whatever. I'm not going to argue with you about that either. I mean, I might if you really want to, but it's not. It doesn't motivate me, right? It's when people say it's like here's this clear evidence of the shared.
I don't know why I'm waving at you and you can't see me because the post is blocking my camera.
Let's not even say all.
The only guy that has his camera on. Speed, if I'm too ugly for your stream, man, just let me know. I'll shut my camera off.
Hold on. What now?
I said I waved because I saw the high Leophilius, and then I said, "Why am I waving? He can't see me because the thing is posted over me." And I'm like, "Wow, it's posted over the only guy that actually has his camera on." And then I said, "Speed, man, if I'm too ugly,
I see.
you just gotta let me know if I'm too ugly. I'll shut my camera off."
No. You're the best looking guy here. So.
All right. Yeah. Sure.
Well, I mean, one of us looks like a fish.
Have you seen me?
I have a couple times.
Oh,
yes.
hey.
So, I look like I'm 70 and like I had a rough life.
Sure. My little Photoshop job of you guys was standing got shared around, right? That was.
What was that?
What?
Photoshop job of us was standing.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I saw that. I kind of want to now. Where is it?
Hold on. Get the damn thing.
Oh, is that the thing you sent me a while back?
I never got sent this.
Who did that?
That was CRISPR, I believe.
Okay.
No, yeah, that was the work of my free time.
We could use an artist. We could use some fucking production values.
Yeah, so far the biggest hit for a thumbnail was the one I made of the trash clowns.
Yeah, the trash clowns got a lot of hits. We got like 108 views on that one. Yeah.
It's the thumbnail.
Yeah, it's the thumbnail. We need a good thumbnails. Okay, I'm gonna roll. Okay.
Yep.
It's on their wages because their wages were so.
Oh
crappy.
shit! What did I do?
We are late. Yeah. Whoa.
Dude.
Like you, damn.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, we got to go back. We got Dan talking. We got hang on. We got
fucking old people. I tell you.
I know, fucking old
Get
people.
like shot answer. Get the fuck out of the stream.
Okay, so are we about here? Are we at? We're a little before this, I think.
Okay,
Oh,
so
this is my.
Okay. Okay.
What
So
the fuck was that?
That's about as bad.
Play
as
that one. Play that one more time.
Somebody needs to clip that.
Okay, so okay, so okay, so we're gonna use.
Okay, we have a roll back.
We already got one.
Stoner laugh. Oh my God.
Well, he practices that condescending laugh in the background, but he was tired and he kind of fucked it up, and I caught it, man. I have a bookmark. It's like, anyway.
The way that sounded.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think I skipped a few minutes ahead. Does that matter? I'm not. I don't know. Should we roll?
Start doing that now.
Okay, let it go for a while. Let it go. Saturday Night at the Atheist. That's going to be our theme.
Hey, it was the timestamp
Yeah, we're gonna
was
talk about stoner laughs.
2:49:52.
Oh, it's 2:49:52. Let's see if I can. The fucking YouTube is not very good at this stuff. Okay, we're at 56.
For somebody drinking, you're a lot more sober than I am right now.
Let
So
go.
now
not drinking
this
now.
didn't work. So now you're repositioning yourself and you're trying to make sense of it. You're gonna keep the theory going. So if one avenue don't work, you're gonna go down another avenue. That don't work, you're gonna go down another one. And the whole thing with the horizontal gene transfers, you can't prove that. Because the fact
If you're saying that it didn't work,
Foreskin?
you're just
Foreskin?
Yeah, we cannot prove that the Earth is rotating.
We can't prove
the fact that it drifts 15 degrees. Is it 15 degrees per hour?
Yeah, 15.
The fact that it drifts 15 degrees per hour does not mean it's rotating. Nope.
No.
Well, I mean, that's if you believe there's an Earth.
Oh man,
Earth? What's this Earth myth? There's no Earth. There's never been any Earth.
It's all in your mind. It's all in your mind.
There's no reality. Nothing exists.
guys, my experiment proves that the Earth is actually a cube. Okay, don't ask questions about that.
I'd believe in a cube.
4 simultaneous days, man. It's the time cube.
Never proved a rescue device known as horizontal gene transfer.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else actually knows that reference.
The experiment?
No, the time cube reference.
Oh my god.
I'd have to hear it again.
The four simultaneous days, time cube.
Yeah.
I don't know it.
Okay, yeah, you weren't on the internet when I was. That's why.
How old are you, by the way? Just because I'm curious. You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Well, old enough that I got a YouTube account in 2006.
Oh wait. So
that just gives me too much of a range. You could be 28. You could be 41. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wait, you were actually around when that fucker was still alive. Holy shit.
CRISPR doesn't like to give details, guys.
When who was still alive?
When the guy that developed the time cube was still alive.
Oh, what the fuck was that? What movie was that? A movie?
No, it was just this hilarious webpage that got shared around a lot on FARC.
Oh wait, okay. So maybe we don't know it from the same person. I know it from the guy that does the down the rabbit hole thing. Frederick Knudsen.
Yeah, no, I know it. I know it from FARC. I was a big fan.
Okay, yeah.
I know FARC still exists, but I guess I just finally spilled enough whiskey on the servers that it just lost interest in me.
Yeah, I know it from a different way.
Okay, I'm gonna roll.
But yeah, that's right.
It worked.
There was another point I wanted to make with that, which is C. Brown keeps saying like, oh, well, you keep changing how you think about things. Like, oh, you keep, substituting one rescue device for another. Isn't the point of science to grow, right? I mean,
but no, the important thing here is that I'm not backing away from anything. I'm saying it's not relevant for this conversation. right?
Yeah,
Like,
but to him, he views that as
right. So like
Okay,
when I said I don't want to talk about abiogenesis right now, it's not because I'm abandoning it or anything. It's just because like it's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, and I could kind of make the point that you could consider abiogenesis as part of like the relevant part of evolution.
Mhm.
It's a much more complicated issue than say like the reptile mammal the water to land transition that mammals made.
Well, but more importantly, again, I look at the composition of the room, and I see a bunch of young Earth creationists who are pushing for young Earth creationism. I wish I hadn't structured the sentence that way now.
That's fine.
But anyway, so what's my goal? I think young Earth creationism is bullshit, and let's show why. And I don't need abiogenesis to do that. In fact, abiogenesis is completely irrelevant. It has no bearing whatsoever on whether or not the Earth is older than 10,000 years.
No.
I just don't care for the purpose of that conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's like, do I care about the horizon problem for the Earth to be 10,000 years? No, I don't give a shit. Doesn't matter.
See, that's the
It's fine
the
either
problem
way.
is
It's fine either way. Doesn't matter.
They don't
Doesn't matter.
understand that. They think that evolution is this huge, vast conspiracy to explain everything without
Well, I
God.
mean, it is.
That's why they'll talk about how you've got evolution, but then they go off about cosmology, and you're just like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? What does fucking where the universe came from have to do with what life's doing on one small little speck of dust?
It doesn't. Look, here's really what I want to do. Is there a common ancestor for all of hominini? Right? Like yes or no? Right? That's can I demonstrate that? Because if I can, young Earth creationism is wrong.
Yep.
And I think I can. Now, if you think I can't, fine, I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah.
If you think I can, you probably want to hear me prove you wrong. If you already accept that I'm right, then you're rejecting young Earth creationism. And I think I've won. I think at that point I've won. So great.
I agree with you. I don't think that like the age of the Earth conversation is necessarily something that needs to be an essential aspect of conversation for
not
conversations.
the full age, right? Like I don't need to prove how old the Earth is. I need to prove the Earth is older than a certain point.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
it's like,
and I think if you just go into, the conversation itself of like, you can choose any dating method that we use. I mean, isochron dating or radiometric dating or dendrochronology or dendrochronology or
I can get there with trees, man. You don't need anything.
Yeah.
No, it's like riding a roller coaster. Okay. It doesn't matter whether or not you're 8 foot tall or not, right? You could be.
No.
But you can ride the ride at 48 inches. So that's what I need. That's my benchmark. Mm-hmm. Can I do it? Let's find out.
It's just, I guess with my interaction in the community, I've kind of seen it to be the case that it seems like it might be easier to attack this conversation by first establishing how old is our Earth? Because if you get to the point where you can say, oh yeah, like it's millions or billions of years old, all of a sudden that makes things a lot harder for the creationist perspective and a lot easier.
So I'll tell you the problem with that. See, the problem with that is if you're starting it from the point of view of how old is the Earth, firstly, that is the whole thing, right? But also that opens you up to them saying, well, that method says that it's old, but this method that I've misunderstood says that it's young. And this other method over here doesn't match either of them because I've misunderstood it. And so, like, you can't reconcile all of this. But for me, I'm going to say, all right, Hominini has a common ancestor. Here, look at the evidence, right? Now, they can't, like, there's no way for them to get out of that. And
right.
The only way that they can try to get out of it is by saying, but you can't explain where it all came from because you can't explain abiogenesis. Like,
moving the goalposts is what they do every time. As soon as they'll ask you a question, as soon as you start to answer the question, they'll take off with the fucking goalposts.
Well, let's engage the hypothetical a little more. Then, I mean, even if you were to prove that Hominini had, like, that there is an ancestor to Hominini, for instance, and they accept it, you just say, "Oh, okay, well then, now, I accept that, but I reject the rest of evolution."
All right, but that means that they agree that the Earth is at least 6 million years old.
Yeah.
Well, no, they could say that God created that as one of the first humans.
Created what now?
That is what they would say.
They would say that that's one of the first humans, like that. Those were other humans that God created.
So now they have to say. So now they have to say that chimpanzees are human.
Well.
Oh shit! I've been on mute this whole time. I've been saying that.
You've been what?
Yeah,
Wow.
Hominini includes genus Pan and genus Homo. So if you accept that Hominini is human, that means that chimpanzees are also humans, and that's like the moral crux of creationism gone. How long have I been muted?
I don't know. I haven't heard you in a while.
In fact, we haven't heard you say anything since the stream started.
We were a little concerned, but that makes sense now. Good God.
Has Walker just been sitting there talking to us and wondering why we're not engaging with what he's
Another
saying?
thing I wanted to say within the past 15 minutes is someone should debate C. Brown on whether or not horizontal gene transfer is a thing. That would be an interesting one. All right.
Debating C. Brown, no.
That's what's been hiding behind my mute button for these past.
No fucking
however long
way.
I've been muted.
Someone should debate C. Brown on whether or not he has a fucking brain. Because I'm almost certain, between him and Michael Klein, I'm almost certain he is like the first person of a brain in a vat that actually exists.
Well, we're 6 minutes away from the or whatever the hell it is.
Oh my god.
Go again?
Yeah.
Let's roll. Let's roll.
To the point of eukaryotes. Now, if you want to accept evolution with common descent all the way to the point of eukaryotes, fine, okay. Like, I'm not gonna. And that's actually, so I think that this might be something that that Smoky had wanted to talk to me about, which is like what actually motivates me in these conversations. And the thing is there's only a fairly narrow range, and so if people, like I don't mind people who think that people who think that there's intelligent design, that like you had to have a guiding hand of God to make all this happen. I don't believe that. But like, if that's your deal, then I'll let you be. Right? It doesn't bother me at all. Again, it's not my position, but it's fine. And honestly, even if you want to argue that it's impossible for abiogenesis to happen, I take issue with the word impossible. If you say it's improbable for abiogenesis to happen,
I love that point.
It's fine. Whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to argue with you about that either. I mean, I might if you really want to, but it's not. It doesn't motivate me, right? It's when people say it's like, here's this clear evidence of the shared ancestry of not, let's not even say all life, but of broad swaths of life. Really? That's what you're denying? And then people always seem to they go to, well, but you can't explain how you bring prokaryotes into it. Well, if that's where you're drawing the line.
But we don't have to hold on. We don't have to deny that. We don't have to deny that, because the thing about it is we just got a different starting point. We're starting with a creator, okay? But we don't feel that you have.
Sorry.
Hold on. But wait a minute. No. But hold on. You talked for a long time. I listened to you. Let me finish.
You didn't even.
What
let
I'm
him
saying to
finish,
you
though.
is, we start from a creator, which makes more sense because you don't really have a true way to get to where you want to go from the beginning. This is reason why we got this whole narrative now. Okay, fine. For the sake of argument, let's just say you got a designer. That's backpedaling. That's because you can't speak to how it came into existence, how it maintained itself, and how everything came together.
No,
So
I
therefore,
actually can.
hold on. Okay,
I
just give me
can
one more
speak to
second.
that. I just don't care that much about it. Right. The thing is,
Okay,
the thing is,
but you don't. But you don't.
silly.
But
So let me. This is.
you don't.
I think you
You
missed my
don't
point. You missed my
know.
point. I'm sorry, but I
Jesus
think you missed
Christ,
my
this
point.
guy.
Because my point is that if I'm looking at a bunch of
Horse
people
man.
who said,
Oh,
if everybody else in this room,
oh, wait a minute. Okay.
This is the part that kills me most about C. Brown. It's the "but you don't know, boy" kind of
Yeah.
argument.
It's this
Missed the nuance of your argument.
this narrative has been increasingly getting louder in the last month or so. With them, we're basically our worldview, and we can't explain abiogenesis. Therefore, everything's fucking invalid. And I think it started with Smoky's entry into the crowd, but it's just
I don't know. Origins or bust has been a thing for a while.
well, but I mean it's been getting louder.
It's the thing is I genuinely believe like it's the last front for creationism. Like
it is.
It seems to be the last place where
They can insert their god.
yeah, I mean the
last
rest of
gap.
Yeah, I mean it's honestly, I can't say I blame him, but I mean, god damn, it's not,
Yeah.
It's not hard, like for the origin of life.
Well, I mean, they'll
But it is
still find a way, but
oh yeah, I don't doubt that.
I did want to add another thought. As this whole abiogenesis is impossible, they can't show that unless, because when you use the word impossible, there are some other contexts that the word can be meant in, but generally what most people are saying when something is impossible is that there is some fundamental logical contradiction or paradox in a particular state of affairs preventing it from being actualized. What is then the logical contradiction or paradox within the abiogenesis model that prevents such a state of affairs being actualized? They couldn't give it.
No, they
They'll
can't.
just cite
That's
problems
because
that can't be explained, at which point I would just have to say not being capable of explaining something doesn't mean that it can't happen at all. Like that's just
Well, the thing is, abiogenesis is an exceptionally integrative field.
Yeah.
And by that I mean it requires and utilizes like so many different fields of study, like to understand things like, for instance, like what's the maximum optimization that a cell can have in terms of nutrient uptake and other things like that. These things are mathematically are able to be mathematically modeled quite well. But there are certain issues that, for instance, okay, once you get all the building blocks of life together, how do you integrate them into forming what we would call life? How do you take inanimate matter and assimilate it in such a way that now it behaves like a lifelike system? That, I think, is the ultimate, is the current paradigm of abiogenesis. It's how do we get, these hypotheses of metabolism first, information first, to kind of combine and form a lifelike system. Because those three theories we all have understandings and explanations for, but we don't have a very clear understanding of how these three integrate with each other very well. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that, but
I thought you did pretty well.
Well, I roll.
Yep, it's roll.
Actually, I just want to kind of allude to what Immutable was saying by giving an analogy in another field. It's a lot like quantum gravity in theoretical physics.
Yeah,
that's what abiogenesis is. A almost obviously different field, but it's the same type of problem. this is complex and we don't understand it yet. That is not in any way, shape, or form an invitation for you to assert that it's anything beyond the natural realm, because there's no precedent or empirical foundation for that, nor is there a mechanism for how it even occurs. Well, but don't press Maddox on the mechanism for how God did it, because God forbid.
I think I'm gonna get to the giggle, and then I probably got to peace out. I'm getting pretty tired.
The thing is, too, like with quantum gravity, and this applies for abiogenesis as well, there's so little things you need quantum gravity to explain.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're trying to understand, like, the origin of, like, the original state, or, like, the original confirmation of the universe, like, back at t = 0, whatever the hell that means, yeah, then you need quantum gravity.
Important for some things with,
it really
with black
is
holes too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I should
true.
say it won't explain the singularities. What will happen is the singularities will fall away, and we'll actually have a mathematical description of what's going on.
Yeah, you need them for, like, the most extreme cases of extreme cases, which are black holes and, like, the origin of the universe.
Yeah. You know that, and we just get close to one. There's probably some naked singularities out there.
Yeah, maybe.
There probably are. I mean,
hot naked singularities in your area.
Hot naked singularity.
God.
I think I knew a hooker that was named that.
Hot naked singularities.
Yep. That was her stage. that was her stage. I'm pretty sure I met her. Anyway, okay, so maybe we can get to the giggle, and then the whole. I think the whole. You want to, like, call it a night after the giggle and reconvene tomorrow night?
Sure, I'm down. I'm fucking hungry. I want to eat food.
Okay, we'll get to the giggle here. What are we? 3 minutes from giggle. So
3 minutes.
In fact, we will do everything according to where the giggle is from now on. So
pre-giggle and post-giggle.
Everybody else in this room would say that the Earth is only 6,000 years, and God created some thousands of different kinds of species that are not related to one another. Beyond that, some species are related to one another, but that's within these thousands or several thousands of kinds, right?
Sure.
Okay, but then you say that. That's what you think. And I want to say, well, that's clearly wrong, because look, you can connect all of these things, at least down to eukaryotes. And then you want to turn it around to me and say, well, but if you can't get yourself from eukaryotes, from all life to eukaryotes, then it must be only 6,000 years old. And that's insane.
Okay,
That's
the whole
the
thing is
thing that
okay.
gets
Okay,
me.
so hold on.
Okay,
Right. Okay.
hang on a second.
Okay. Well, hey, John, let me just say one thing real quick. My whole point is, you're not saying the whole thing about God, but you have to admit that the evolutionists are backpedaling. They got to keep repositioning themselves, and they're giving us the whole God scenario. But yet, hold on, let me just finish. Yes, they are. Obviously, so you ain't been listening to what they've been saying. They do not want to speak to anything that has anything to do with anything near the beginning. Okay, period. Okay, so hold on 1 second. So that's backpedaling. They're giving you that. They don't want to talk about it. Okay.
No, because I want you to admit the rest of it, right?
Okay, so
like this. It's like I'm sorry. It's like this. If it's like I've got somebody who's arguing that 1 + 1 = 3, right? And I want to try and explain to them that 1 + 1 = 2, and they start talking to me about calculus, right? It's like, well, can you explain this this complex differential equation? Like, I might be able to, but let's go over 1 + 1 first.
But see, that's that Dan. See, that's that Dan talking. Now you sounding like Dan.
It does sound like Dan.
Explain this
But I gotta
equation. Maybe only God can explain this complex differential equation. I don't know.
Okay, I'm glad you believe in him.
Let's get through 1 + 1. Let's do 1 + 1.
Okay.
Let's do 1 + 1. And then if we got 1 + 1, let's talk about 2 × 3. Okay.
Okay.
If we do 2 × 3.
Okay, hang on.
Keep working our way up.
Hang on. Crispr, hang on. So do you actually think that there is reasonable proof of prokaryote to eukaryote evolution?
Proof?
Proof is the wrong word.
Yeah, that's 1 + 1.
So I got to tell you, I
His best
tell
move.
my
Everybody, be quiet. Be quiet. Everybody, be quiet. CRISPR,
I tell the undergrads.
I want to know from you, as a supposed expert, what is the fundamental, reasonable, beyond all doubt, very probable, and plausible explanation for prokaryote to eukaryote?
Okay.
So,
we're talking about 1 plus. We're talking about 1 plus 1. So what? Let's go back to 1.1. 1 plus 1. You said we are talking about
get that
well, I know,
analogy
1 plus
at
1 is actually
all.
This is calculus. This is like Calc 2. We're not at differential equations, but we're
okay. So
okay. I don't know.
They don't even know what the fuck a differential equation is.
Well, the other thing is that
literally, if you took a check, just laid it on the table, I would look at you and say, I don't care what amount is written on that check. I would bet that everybody else in that chat besides CRISPR, if I asked them what is meant, what does it mean to take the derivative of a function, none of them would be able to say, oh, that's calculating for the slope of the tangent line at any given infinitesimal point along the function. Because they don't know shit about anything.
Well, but here's the other fun part, is that you can hypothetically argue your way through that once you have abiogenesis figured out, once you have these, this parameter space for how life figures out, the rest of it is actually fairly easy. The rest of it is entirely predicted by evolution.
The rest of it we can observe now. We can observe right now, today. I can go out and I can look with my eyes at the stuff that's happening now.
Yeah.
That's what makes it simple.
The other thing, though, too, is that it makes a lot of other things simple, too.
What the fuck?
It makes things like, why is the heart the way it is, simple as well. Because biological systems are optimization machines, essentially. They are trying to optimize some
Anything
result.
that's not optimal for survival isn't going to survive for very long. So what you're looking at now are the things that are the best survival, obviously.
Okay, hang on a second.
It's not really about survival. It's about differential reproductive success.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Hold on
I mean,
a second.
I don't understand it technically enough, so I kind of just speak in the colloquial terms that it's told to me in.
Yeah, I do you one better, though, CRISPR, with that one. This is the long process of life giving entropy the middle finger.
No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of that.
Yeah, that's
life
true.
increases look like entropy.
It's us slowly sucking entropy off, so it'll let us be around a bit longer. I mean, that's
it's maximizing entropy.
You couldn't see it, but I made a hand motion too when I said that.
I believe it.
I wouldn't doubt that.
Okay, guys, YouTube just rejected my comment. I said my mom tried to get me into it when I was 6.
Oh, Michael.
What the fuck does that mean?
Oh, Michael. God.
I was talking about religion. My mom tried to get me
Where
into
did you
it
put
when I
this
was
comment at?
I tried to put it in. I tried.
Was your mom pretending to be stuck under a bed at the time?
No. My mom tried to get me to go to church when I was 6 years old, is what I was trying to say.
Was your mom sleeping in silk?
Okay, I'm not going to comment on that.
What about soap?
I'm just trying to say that my mom tried to get me to go to church when I was 6 years old. YouTube took some. What the fuck does YouTube think I meant about my mom? What kind of perverted motherfucking robot is this?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's response to Vista for
I'm assuming it's interpreting that the wrong way.
Well, what the fuck way would you interpret that? What kind of twisted, sick shit is going through
algorithm that
YouTube's
does the
mind?
I don't know, Michael, but whatever it is, you're responsible for it.
Well,
I mean,
anyways,
I
we
can't
passed the giggle.
even make
I'm gonna go
anything.
to sleep.
Yeah, okay.
All
We'll
right.
see you, Walker.
Night, y'all.
Good night.
All right, see ya.
Fuck this. Fuck the laugh. I'm tired.
Anyway, yeah, we gotta give it up, guys. We should do this tomorrow. We should go through the rest of this tomorrow night. You up for that, CRISPR?
I'm down. I don't know.
I'll have to see where I am at the time.
See where you are. Okay. What state of sobriety, or like what state of
No,
like
it's so we're sort of inducting the new grad students who are having having something of a rough transition because of the current state of the world. So
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, well, we'll check it out tomorrow night, but I think we'll probably reconvene and try to do more of this tomorrow night. Because I think there's still some pretty good shit here. So, and then I think John kind of drops off and falls asleep or something at some point. Anyway, it's been
Apparently
cool.
he does that a lot. I don't know how people can do that, but each being fun.
It's been fun.
Yep.
It's nice actually meeting you, CRISPR. I always see you frying people into side chats in various places, and I'm like,
yeah, CRISPR,
that's
you
a
have
cool
to,
guy.
you have to meet Molecular Alchemy.
Yeah, you
'cause
do.
Yeah, you do. And he wants to meet you, but he couldn't make it tonight because a hurricane stole his internet.
He's the biochemist. You're the biologist. You two together would be a creationist.
Molecular alchemy is like a molecular molecular biologist and geneticist.
And I might be wrong on this. I really don't know. So correct me if I'm wrong. But isn't molecular biology an extension of biochemistry, or is it the other way around?
Kind of, yeah. It's a little different. I don't know. It has a different flavor.
Because I guess I looked at it as like molecular biology would be to biochemistry what astrophysics is to theoretical physics.
I think molecular biology
particle physics is what the theoretical physics, where theoretical physics is kind of like the overarching subject, then you have your little different sub-disciplines within that. But I really don't know because I don't know that much about biology.
I think biochemistry is more reductive, I think.
So biochemistry still cares about where the electrons are. That's the difference.
Oh God.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what were you saying, Mutable? Since you are a biochemist, I think.
So what the biochemist does, the relation to the cell biologist, is they take a cell, put it in a blender,
right?
You know, have it.
Okay. So molecular
he said
biology.
molecular biologist, not cell biologist.
Oh God.
Molecular biology is biochemistry on LSD or mushrooms.
So a molecular biologist is interested in how groups of molecules, as in many molecules, interact to do things, whereas a biochemist is generally only interested in, at most, 2 molecules at once.
Yep. Biochemistry on shrooms.
You mean real chemical analysis is what you're talking about there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
I think
All right.
it's
That summed it up.
Okay, guys. Want to end this thing?
Yep.
I'm going to end broadcast right now. Good night, everyone.
See ya.
All the people in the public, anyway.
And before we end this stream, to all those watching and who viewed this at a later date,
yep.
If you do so, Skylar, I'm not trying to take from you. I just like the phrase. Subscribe, make the world a better place.
Yes, subscribe. Damn it, I want to die soon.